All right, it's Thursday night, and that means it's time for Live from Nicaragua. I'm Scott Al Miller. This is Leon, Nicaragua, and we are getting the show rolling. We've already got the word out. We shared the link with people. We're making it happen. We are excited to be here. Thanks, everyone, for joining. And this week, so last week we missed. I was so busy, I can't even remember what went wrong that we couldn't do it last week. I may have been out of town. That might have been what it was. But so this week, I'm actually going to do some work in the background. So I'm not going to have this up on the screen all of the time that I'm here because I just have too much that I need to do. Actually, I'm going to work on putting it up on the screen over here so that I have some chance of seeing what's going on. I just need more screens, is really. But I've got a dog trying to get in the door. So while you guys are joining, I'm grabbing the dog. It's the perfect timing. So excuse me for not being on screen for a moment. Come on, dog. Oh, nope. I imagine the dog. Well, that's a new one. I'm getting ghost dog sounds here in my office. Oh, how's everyone doing this week? Oh, my week has been crazy, but not necessarily bad, just crazy, right? So, sign off of a couple things. Don't need my email open for work and such. I've been too busy. It is time to take a little time off from the office, get a chance to unwind a little bit, and enjoy doing the live stream. And at some point, I'm going to go grab a beer. Not yet, but at some point. And let's see. Oh, and there's the live right there. Firing it up. Oh, I'm going to need to turn the... Oh, that's not good. Where did my remote go? Great.
Share the best views of Cappadocia.
That's terrible. That's weird. Why do I not have my remote? How could that disappear? Weird. Anyway, I can see it, so we're good. And I can kind of see the chat. That's not great that the chat... Oh, no one's talking. Okay, well, that gives us something anyway. Perfect. So why is no one on yet? That's the real question. What's going on, guys? We know it's working because I can see it. Actually, people might be on. I may just not be able to see the numbers. So just waiting for you guys to hop on and say hello while you're doing that. I'm going to keep working in the background because I have loads and loads of work to be doing. And it is what it is. It's just been... It's not been bad, right? I'm doing a lot of work because I'm getting to do really cool stuff. I'm back engineering again. I talked about this a couple weeks ago. And so this is like a month now almost that I've been just really working hard like crazy. And it's good, right? It's sometimes I'm working like crazy because there's disasters, and this isn't that. This is working like crazy because we have a really cool project going on, and so it feels good as long as it's working and moving forward. But it is still exhausting, and it has highlighted to me how hard I have to work to get uninterrupted time. And even weekends, like it's really highlighting, and I don't mean like my kids interrupting me, like I make time for my kids. It's how many aspects of life absolutely demand my time and massive amounts of it, and without any escape. Like, I'm not sure in a month I've had one entire day. I've probably had like one entire day where I was able to hunker down and just focus on getting some of these projects done. And my goal was to put in like 3 to 4 days a week doing that. Out of 7, not out of 5, right? It's like I'm willing to take the weekend. If I could get, 1 to 2 days out of the weekend and then 1 to 2 days out of the week, I'd be pretty good. I'm not anywhere close to that, right? I'm at best 1 day per fortnight without taking any days off to try to get a productive day where I'm not dealing with them. And I've had weekend days where there was like the entire day was me dealing with an outage that was an actual emergency and completely kept me from doing what I needed to do. So, Tavo Tehran is here, and you guys will excuse me if I don't pronounce names really well because they're kind of blurry from where I'm reading them. So it's not that I can't read your name, it's that I can't read. Tonya or Victoria, he asked. For me, really clearly Victoria. I had a Victoria and then a Tonya back to back 2 days ago, and I don't normally do that. Like normally it's one night, have one thing, just whatever's available. And I normally pick Victoria, and I don't think about it too much. I'm gonna move the mic a little bit closer. And but I had a Victoria because there was one, and then we had a bunch of Tonya. And without thinking, I just started drinking the Tonya, and I was like, oh, this is it was like not what I wanted. And I was like, oh, I really, in a blind, not realizing it test, really do prefer Victoria. Like I really do. And there's the dog. She appears. Luke says, buenos, y'all. You're up to 3 folks, he says. Woohoo, we're good. 3 folks, that's all we need. Right, we're not really demanding around here. 3 people's good. Plus, I can keep working. So the fewer people that are on, the less I feel bad that I'm still working. I'm sore from being in this chair so much, but there's not a lot to be done about that. I'm just kind of stuck in the office. I can't do my work in any other condition. So, and one of the things about Nicaragua, it's hard to have like a standing desk, like things like that. Those are challenges that we kind of have, just in general. So it's, and I'm still, this just reminded me because a ticket came up. I'm still covering, we had an employee who got fired because, oh my gosh. And, we decided that I'm covering his shift. I've been working so much, I might as well just cover it, right? Because I'm at my desk anyway. But so I've been covering for now at least 2 weeks. More than that, he was fired. Oh, it's been 3 weeks, right? Because he was fired in late June, and they actually wanted to get rid of him weeks before that. So I've been covering for most of a month for a position that's the second shift, and it's been so exhausting with work that I don't even notice that I'm doing an entire extra person's job thrown in. I tell you, some days. So what have all you guys been up to? Fill me in with you. It's like I've just been here working, like for real. I have a lot going on, but it's all really stuff I can't talk about. I don't mean like I can't talk about that. I mean it's like here's some code that I did, right? Like that's not in any way interesting. Outside of being crazy boring and super busy, I've had like nothing else whatsoever going on. My driver's license is at least in the mail, I'm told. We got a shipping number on it. We haven't heard anything since then, so hopefully that's all positive and on its way and going to be here soon, fingers crossed. That will make a huge difference, that we can finally go places and do more things. And I am really excited, about the work that I'm doing. Like, it's such a nice change to just have different work to do and work that seems to be going really positive. Not that my normal work doesn't go positive, but this is like really productive and cool. And we've had a lot of changes at work, not including the guy who got fired. That was really, he was new and never really got to be part of the team. So that was somewhat not a big deal from a cultural and long-term perspective. Like, we didn't really notice too much, but other things at work, big changes, restructuring teams, getting a different manager taking over some critical role stuff. I'm gonna sneeze, I think. If I mention it, maybe I won't. Sorry, guys. So we've done a lot of restructuring. We're putting new apps in place. We did some cool stuff at the office. So I've been very happy. And I talked about this 2 weeks ago because we didn't do a show last week. But it's just been overall quite solid on the work front. And we do have a new employee who started 2 days ago, or yesterday. I guess he started yesterday. And so that's hopefully really positive and moving in a good direction. So it's been generally just a lot of good stuff. But when there's change at work, then it becomes just super, super busy, and it kind of absorbs all my time. Luke says, my vid update is uploading as we speak. All of my Envios Fast Track orders and furniture arrived today. Awesome, Luke. That's Envios Fast Track hopefully has my driver's license as well. That is who has that I think everyone's been telling them about the show and that I've been recommending NVO's Fast Track, because when I stopped in there, they're all like, Scott's here! And like, I've never been there before. So it was very funny to walk in and everyone knows me in this office in Las Colinas on the Messiah Road. And I'm like, okay, I guess everybody knows who I am. So that was funny. Boy, what else have we had going on? We've been in Managua a bit. Which has been taking a lot of time. My wife and daughter are doing some real basic stuff, no big deal. Oh, the last time we were doing the live show, so this is 2 weeks ago. Was that really 2 weeks ago? Holy cow. We were doing a live and my daughter fell and I had to go help her. She's fine. But that was how we ended the show 2 weeks ago. To me, that was like 3 days ago. I have no concept of the passage of time because of all the work that I've been doing, which I'm just going to keep saying over and over again, all the work that I've been doing. But that's what it feels like. It feels like it's been my entire life for the last month, other than I pretty much work, for those who are really bored and want to know. I start work at about between 6:30 and 7:30 every morning, mostly working with clients first thing in the morning. Eventually get into my office and then work, and then I work often until midnight. And at midnight, I go join my kids because they're busy until midnight, right? Like this is the summer season, so they are most days starting in mid-afternoon. Sometimes they're like noon. Their cousins in the United States are awake and want to play video games online, and so this is their big window to spend outrageous amounts of time together playing video games. And it's not just like little cousins, like teenagers. They have cousins that are like in their mid-20s, like working professionals and stuff, who also like, so their one cousin's a teacher, their one cousin's a nurse, and then one cousin's a high school student, and so forth. They all get together and play video games online forever. Both of my kids are teenagers, and so it's a really big bonding thing, and it's all family time. So they're having like big time family day. It's the same as if we were in the States and everyone was off for school. They don't have a lot of time for me because this is their dedicated family and friends window for all the family and friends who go to school, that they just get this huge amount of time together. So that actually works out from a certain perspective, that they're not missing out on dad time. But because I don't get them all day, I'm very dedicated to every night that they're willing, between 11 and 1 o'clock. And yeah, quite often they actually do wait until 1 o'clock. Then they get me and it's like, hey, let's go watch our show. If we were doing things earlier, we would play video games together or whatever. But when it's like midnight to 1 o'clock, like I'm burned out. So I can sit and watch a show with them. And we're working our way through season 7 of Supernatural out of 15. So we're closing in on halfway, which is wow. So we spend several hours together every night doing that. And then around 3 o'clock in the morning, I go to bed, get my 4 hours, and get back to it. I wish I was getting more than 4 hours of sleep, but honestly, I'm waking up. Like, I'm not setting an alarm or anything. That's when I get up. So I'm not pushing myself to try to stay awake, and I'm not avoiding sleep, right? It just kind of works out that way. So that's not to think that I'm being unhealthy or anything. Hey, we got some comments. Who is the final delivery company for your EFT orders? Cargo Trans is the local, and I'm not happy with them. I've not had a problem with Cargo Trans. However, I don't normally do the last mile delivery. Sometimes we use a courier, sometimes we use a bus, sometimes we use Cargo Trans, but quite often we just pick up because we've got people in Managua, and we're in Managua every couple days. So we just pick up at NVO's Fast Track most of the time. I think it's Patinka. I mentioned this earlier. The screen is far away and I can't really see you guys. Good evening from Toronto. LG Schwartz is here. Hey, Scott, thank you for your efforts in educating your viewers. I watched your videos for about 3 years before I moved here, and I can't tell you how much I learned from you. Thank you. Oh, awesome. Well, first of all, welcome and congratulations on the move. Glad to have you here. And I'm so glad that it turned out to actually be helpful. That's the stuff that really makes me feel good, right? Not the, you're so helpful, but you haven't moved yet, so you're kind of just thinking I'm helpful. When people have actually moved and are like, I was successful partially because of Scott, then I'm like, oh, good. Because otherwise, I'm actually kind of stressed out. When someone's like, your show is so helpful, now I'm planning on moving to Nicaragua, I'm like, I really hope Nicaragua lives up, or my information lives up to it, because then that's when the rubber hits the road, right? It's funny. I was reading the comments. So first of all, I'm a little bit on the short side this week, meaning I'm being a little bit short with people, and I definitely have a zero tolerance for the people who are like, people from the United States are not Americans, Nicaraguans are Americans. No, there is no continent of America. There is no term for people from all the Caribbean to call them American. Like, none of that is true. And so I'm just like, done, because I did a video that used the term American in the title, and you just get flooded with people who have this like, people from the United States are not real people. They don't get to have a name, like all kinds of stuff. So I'm just like, there's been a bit of that. But so someone who's a regular on the channel complained, right? I realize that sometimes we feel like people are complaining a lot more than they actually are in videos. So I don't mean to imply he's like really complaining. That's not what I'm trying. Don't someone be mad at him. He was kind of like, you didn't stay on topic on this video. He's talking about the marriage one. And he's like, you always drift off on topic, and I came here for this information and I didn't get it. And I watched this whole video and wasted my time because I wish you had stayed on topic. And then he described what he wanted. And I'm like, you see, that doesn't do what you think it does. And you would know that had you watched the video. The video was specifically for you. You're the target audience for this video because people get this information wrong all the time. And because you were being upset that it wasn't the information you wanted, you missed that it was the information you needed. Honeybee Journey says, hi, Scott, what type of government does Nicaragua have? It is a kind of regular... I don't know the term for it. Is it monocameral, unicameral? So the United States is a bicameral where there's two houses, right? The House of Commons, that would be the UK, right? Sorry, everybody. The House of Commons and the House of Lords in the UK, the House of Representatives and the Senate in the United States. So the UK is bicameral monarchy, right? And the United States is a bicameral pseudo-republic, right? Because it's not a real republic. You don't have direct representation. You don't have the representation. The thing they call representation isn't a representative. Here in Nicaragua, it is a traditional European-ish style multi-party unicameral republic, right? So it's it's the thing that the U.S. fears the most, right? Democracy. You vote for all of your officials at all levels, and you vote basically directly for the things you want, and you have lots of different parties that you're allowed to vote for. In a practical sense, if you want to have influence, right, you want your vote to have influence, like in the United States, you must vote for either Republican or Democrat if you want your vote to actually get somewhere and do something. Here, it ends up being very similar, and there's some talk, like in several countries, where and this is especially true immediately after a revolution, right? So the United States had the same thing. If you wanted in the early days for your vote to do anything, you had to vote Federalist, or your vote went nowhere. Like, you were allowed to cast a vote and just be like, I don't like the government. That's okay, right? It gets a message across, not a useful one necessarily, because you're like, okay, but what don't you like, right? Are you just an underdog voter? Valid. Are you upset with fiscal policy, social policy, military policy, foreign policy, right? It doesn't really provide a lot of guidance. Now, that's why multi-party systems are good if you want to have a dissenting vote type thing, than having something like a Green Party, where you can be like, I'm voting for them, and then it shows up in the rolls that you were willing to throw away your vote for the majority. And the reason you did so is to show up on the rolls for the minority, but specifically the minority that is interested in, for example, the ecology. I worry about the environment. That's what matters to me. And so that doesn't get them into power, but it does tell the ruling party, hey, you're losing a certain group of people because they feel these people take the environment more seriously, as an example. And that's a common one that we see in Europe. The Green Party specifically fulfills that role in a bunch of countries. Here in Nicaragua, because we're in the same federalist years after the revolution, the FSLN, the Sandinistas, have so much momentum that in most cases, if you want to have a really meaningful vote, right, if you're a Nicaraguan, right, if you're an expat, it doesn't matter, you don't get a vote. Voting Sandinista gives you a lot more ability to influence intra-party politics rather than inter-party politics, which is very much the same in the United States, right? Democrats and Republicans, while they try to trick Americans by making them seem very different, right? And they call them, like, Republicans will call the Democrats the left to trick people into not realizing that Democrats are also on the right, just not as far right. Right, they're both on the right. There's not a big variance. To other countries, no one can figure out why Americans think that there's this variance at, like, all these things. Like Americans seem very confused to outsiders about their own government, so that's kind of a funny thing. But the thing in the United States is voting between Democrat and Republican actually does surprisingly little. But inside one of those parties, you have a lot of heavy influence. That's where the real politics takes place, is in the control of them, not in the who's who. At the end of the day, they're sometimes divergent a little bit, but for the most part, awfully the same. And so then that's quite often the case. Most places, that is why in Europe they push very hard for very multi-party systems, and that's how they do it, by having coalition governments. And while that does happen, so this is a coalition government country, so it's like Europe. So it qualifies as a democracy under the European standards, whereas the United States does not. Now, they're not allowed to say it about the United States because the U.S. will bomb someone who points out that they're not a democracy. But Turkey was not eligible to join the EU because Turkey switched to the United States form of government, right? That is a generally qualify as non-democracy, and so but Nicaragua qualifies as a democracy because it's the same as, say, a Germany or France, where you have this coalition possibility, and that's not the only mechanism that you're allowed to have a democracy. It doesn't work that way, but it is a common approach to when you want to actually have votes be useful. One of the ways they try to do that, nothing's super great, right? Democracies are not as easy as they sound, unless you're an itty-bitty country like, Monaco or one of those things, right? 50,000 voters. Yeah, democracy can work. Once you get to a few million, it really kind of doesn't. You kind of have to come up with something. But one of the ways that they make them work better is having these multi-party systems. And so under non-fresh revolutionary circumstances, like Germany or France, you typically have this, like, we actually have like 8 to 12 parties, all who actually kind of matter, and people don't get all caught up in just two. And the reason that the U.S. has only two is because they don't have the system, but you can't make coalition governments. And so in, say, Germany, you could vote Green. Like, that's what matters to me. And the Green Party can go talk to whoever, right? The Christian centrist, or the national leftist, or the Just for Germany rightist, or whatever, and say, hey, we're willing to put up with your policies. We're going to give you this thing that you care about, probably fiscal policy, and you're going to listen to us on ecological policy, on environmental policy. And because we're gonna compromise on that, our voters are willing to work with you, your voters are willing to work with us, and together we're gonna outvote everyone else. And that's how coalition governments work. Normally it's more than two, but if two are doing really well, then it's just two. And if one does really well, it's just one, like in Nicaragua currently. And so that is, so when you're looking at it and you're wondering who does it mimic, you're going to find that it's very similar to most of Europe, right? Most of Europe and most of Latin America were creating these systems in a post-American world where they had seen the U.S. make a really bad system that didn't function very well. And so the whole world learned from the U.S. because the U.S. did lead in some of these things. They created some of these things early, to give it a lot of credit, right? That says a lot for the U.S. The U.S. attempted a lot of things. However, those things turned out to be very anti-democratic. And so the democratic world learned from the don't do this example, and have these mechanisms that still don't work great, but work far better. So on the world stage, Nicaragua operates like a by-the-book, middle-of-the-road republic. Cargo trans, additional pay. Nicaragua is one of the... offer additional pay is a no-go. Cargo trans, for the second time, refused to deliver to the apartment, even if I offer... Wow, that's weird. Honeybee Journey says, Nicaragua is one of the countries I could retire to, but I'm unsure of what their government is really like. Well, so as a real thing, and he says, thanks for letting me know afterwards. More importantly, like as an expat, none of that matters. Like if you're interested in government, like I take political science as a study, right? I like everyone has their hobbies, and like I'm interested in history, right? Do I get to go live history? No, it's history, right? But it's interesting. And politics fall into that category, right? Politics are interesting. Why does Nicaragua do the things that they do? Well, politics explains part of that, of course. And how is it likely to move in the future? Well, politics explains very little of that, but it might explain a little bit, right? It's much less meaningful than it seems. Politics only gets you so far in the knowledge of what the future is going to be like. It's not a seeing stone or whatever. A crystal ball. That's probably the more useful analogy. But as an expat, what the government is has quite literally no relevance to you. So in this case, most likely, without knowing Honeybee's opinions on governments, there's a really high chance that the type of government Nicaragua has is one that you would go, ooh, I really like that, in this like emotional, what you picture a good government would be, right? No one's perfect, obviously. Some things that Nicaragua has is, for example, the highest ratio of women in politics of any country in the world. We're number one. Right, we just passed the Nordic countries because we just got a female president. Right, until then we were right at the top. We were in like the top 5, but there are quite a few countries that have a female president, and that gives you a lot of weight. We had a female vice president. I honestly, my guess is that a driving force for why they wanted to promote the vice president to president was done in time to make the statistics for the next year that Nicaragua moved into that number 1 spot. Being able to claim the highest ratio of women in government in the world, the most woman-run government there is on Earth, is a pretty big milestone to have hit, right? And so that may be an impetus, but that is a real big point of interest. If you're here in the country and you're like, oh wow, that's something you don't see every day. Literally, there's only one place in the world you get to see number 1, right? In number 1. So there's some things like that are super interesting about it. And you may be like, wow, I really like the things that the Nicaraguan people have been voting for. But as an expat, right? So on that side, I could sell you, right? We could just leave it there, and I could make this a sales pitch for Nicaragua. Look at all the amazing things that Nicaragua is doing, and I think it is. But importantly, all, not most, all of that is purely for the benefit of Nicaraguans. As an expat, not one iota of that matters to you at all. Is it great? Yeah, I think it's great. Does it apply to me? No, not at all. Does it, So it's only great as a point of interest. Kind of like I think the Roman Empire is super interesting. Do I get to live in the Roman Empire? Nope. Right, so it's interesting in that way. As an expat, you could go anywhere. And the government isn't a factor. Their foreign policy, that's different. Maybe you don't like their foreign policy, legit, but that's not really their politics, that's their foreign policy. It's a slightly different thing. Politics influences foreign policy, granted, but that is a unique aspect of governments that applies to people broadly. Nicaragua's foreign policy is basically be good, so it's really hard to find fault with their don't wage any wars, don't influence anything, and point out when people are being bad. Yeah, it's pretty good. Basically, they're just mistreated on the world stage and otherwise don't get involved. But they are a thought leader, right, in the space, but it's in that kind of way, not a military leader like some other places. And but you could go to, say, Argentina, which has a very different government right now, right? And you may, if you like Nicaragua, you're as a government, theoretically, you probably are going to hate Argentina as a government, theoretically. But it doesn't matter at all as an expat. It's purely a point of interest, right? So if Argentina's results, which is like cost of living, safety, freedoms, things like that, none of those things are politics. Americans are often led to believe that those things are politics, but they are not. Those things are simply the rules or the artifacts. So those are the things we care about as expats. We care about what governments have produced. And so yes, the form of government may be, one form of government may be more likely or less likely to produce results that you like than another. That is true. But you could say, and this is, I think, a really good example. If we were to say on the left, governments and governments are not truly on a linear scale, just right or left, but it kind of gives you a guideline. A government that's really far on the left, you could compare to maybe a 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. And on the far right, you may be comparing them to a naturally aspirated V12, right? Now, you may say, oh, on average, the thing that I care about is power. And that V12, on average, is going to deliver me more power, right? But you may say, well, what I care about is fuel efficiency. And that turbocharged 4-cylinder inline is more likely to deliver me better fuel efficiency. But importantly, there are situations where that 4-cylinder is going to be worse at that than the 12 for fuel efficiency. And there are cases where the 4-cylinder is going to deliver more power than the V12. Not normally, but it can. And in those cases, if power is what you cared about, then whichever one delivers that power is the right one for you, regardless of how many cylinders there are. The cylinders is a point of interest. The cylinders gives you some idea about how it's doing what it's doing. But the thing you care about is how much power or how much fuel efficiency or how much torque or whatever is coming out of that engine. And that's political systems are political engines to produce results. So you do care about the results. But as an expat, it's not your polity, so you don't care how they got to those results. And so you could take Nicaragua on one side, we're the farthest left on the continent, on the continental region, right, of Latin America, well, and North America too. And then Argentina currently, or maybe Paraguay, right, they're kind of together, are the farthest right within the region. However, the actual on-the-ground results from Paraguay and Nicaragua are extremely similar. So you may find that those two are very comparable to you, and the fact that their governments are as divergent as you can get within the region reasonably actually doesn't affect you in any way whatsoever, which is really interesting, I guess, that is such an example of just how far apart they can get. Both have similar cost of living, similar safety, similar independent liberties, and so forth, right? And they're actually great examples of the fact that being on the right and being on the left actually don't play very much into day-to-day life, right? And not until you have foreign policy do they become really important. And then you have places like Argentina that was extremely far to the left and then swung extremely far to the right. And it'll probably swing right back again, right? It just goes all over the place. So you don't have a single thing to look at. You have wildly divergent. But on the ground day-to-day life is mostly pretty similar. Now, it did swing so far to the right that they did end up with deep corruption and they now have... A new economic disaster beyond the one that they had before. But they had one under the left before. It was just slightly different than they thought. The swing of the pendulum seemed like it may correct things, and then it swung so far that it didn't. But so that's a really important thing, that if you are looking at how governments work when looking to be an expat, you're only going to mislead yourself. It doesn't actually play in any way like you imagine, and so you'll end up looking at places like Nicaragua and almost certainly saying that's what I want based on something that isn't a good reason to want it, and you would likewise look at places like Argentina and say that's a place I don't want, but you really shouldn't be ruling it out for that reason. Look at the end results that apply to you. That's what matters. I gotta... All right. Luke says, the government here barely affects expats living in Nicaragua. Other than keeping your border runs current until residency, the local government just doesn't affect day-to-day life here. That's actually true anywhere. So he's correct. But I can't think of a place where the government affects you in day-to-day life as an expat. I mean, there are places. Thailand has a lot more interaction with the government than most places. But even there, like, who avoids that because of the government? Nobody, right? Maybe policy, but not because of the government. The fact that they have this kind of very unique government in the region, not a big deal. It is super rare even in things like war zones, for the government to really actively interact with your life as an expat. Again, there's always going to be an exception, and normally it's a combination of what country you're from and which one you go to that may end up with a unique situation where the government actually does interact with you and matters, or it could be a unique situation where you're in a place where the government allows you to become part of the polity very quickly. And so you may care because it's going to become something you care about, right? In Nicaragua, you really have reasonably no path to citizenship, so the polity is out of reach. So the government is never something you get to interact with. But if you were moving to, say, Panama, and you were going there for the purpose of joining the polity, becoming a citizen, then you wouldn't care about the government during the time that you were running up to that. But once you acquired it, then what the government is would matter to you. And so you may want to care about it for the future when you become a citizen, that it'll apply to you, if that makes sense. TJ's here. Hey, Scotty says. My dad is here. Hi, Dad. Honeybee says, very cool. I'm reading different amounts for the passive income requirement. Most websites say 600 for a retiree from the United States. Yeah, that is incorrect. Anything that says that is wildly out of date, right, by like a decade. So the requirement has been for as long as I've known it, $1,000. Now, I did live here 10 years ago and did not know the number at that time. Maybe that's when it was 600. I believe it actually became 1,000 somewhere around 2014, but it may have been around 2017. But as long as I've known it, it has been 1,000, which so over half a decade. And that is for the Pensionado, if you're a man. And very few Americans, maybe 10% of Americans at best, are allowed to apply for that because we're not pensioners in the way that Europeans are. That term is a global term. Most retirees in the world are pensioners. Most Canadians, most Europeans, most Asians, most Africans, most Latin Americans. So most of the world gets to retire with this pension system, and Nicaragua lets you in. Most countries let you in at a lower number because it's guaranteed money for $1,000 a month. If you are a normal retiree from the United States and an abnormal retiree from the rest of the world, then you are a Rentista retiree, which means you're working off of like 401k, IRA, Roth IRA, personal investments, and so forth. Or rental income would qualify. Then you have to be 1,250. So there's two numbers for different types of income-based retirees, but it is not 600, has not been for a really long time, and those things really just show how much about a decade ago there was a boom in marketing Nicaragua to the world, and everyone set up these websites to try to make some quick money, and then that proved to not really make any money, and people were not getting rich quick off of those schemes, and then everyone just abandoned those websites, and they've, how easy is it to just post that information and be like, oh, here's the current number that's been there for most of a decade, and it's easily available to figure out. You don't have to live here, you don't have to come here, you don't have to visit here, you don't have to have ever been here to have access to that information. It's easily available if you know where to look, and you can just update your website. No one does because no one has it, right? So it's that's just basically anything you look up online. The real rule here, Honeybee, is don't even try to look something up online, and I mean that. There is no reliable online source for Nicaragua. Everything is out of date. So even when you find things that seem really current, and even when you find things that feel really well done, and they might have been at the time, websites just keep looking reliable long after they are, right? I can make a beautiful website today, right? Right now on the show, we could make this beautiful website, info.aboutnicaragua.com. We could put up the most current stuff ever, and we could pay for, some web hosting with GitLab, costs almost nothing. We could buy a decade of the name, and 10 years from now, that information would still look like a brand new website. It would still look official. No one would be able to tell that it was 10 years old and that we had never looked at it or thought about it again. Or maybe we do. We keep it up to date and it has new information on it. No one will be able to tell the difference. And that's what you're seeing with all those websites. And so it's not like these people are out to get you, right? That's a really weird thing to be like. It doesn't make any sense that someone would be trying to trick you in that way, and they're not. These are simply abandoned websites, but those abandoned websites are not the majority by 51%. They're the majority by 90 to 95%, or more. I truly don't know of any website that isn't like that when it comes to information about Nicaragua. And so you're really on an uphill battle. And if you want to make it worse, try using AI. That will make it so much worse, because the best AIs, if you're paying for example, the best conversational AI from OpenAI, which is ChatGPT, GPT 4.5, its last data in the system is from 2023, which if you're looking up, I don't know, recipes on how to make the best lobster roll, is 100% adequate, right? Has someone invented a better lobster roll since 2023? Unlikely, but if they have, well, you're not going to get to take advantage of it. But I guarantee the second best lobster roll that was made before 2023 will be adequate for you, right? You have an unlimited number of lobster roll recipes out there. But if you're looking for the current status of immigration and laws and amounts and things and such, on any country, no matter how slowly they move, that's nearly 3 years out of date. That's too much to even consider looking at. And that's the most expensive, newest conversational AI available from the world's biggest AI provider. Everything else is more out of date, sometimes by several more years. And so that's significant, right? If you were to use the standard ChatGPT, the free one, I think it moves up to 5 to 6 years out of date, right? And again, that works for an awful lot of things, but it doesn't work for an awful lot of things too. And when you're using an AI, you always have to be extremely cognizant of, am I using something that is up to date enough that I'm okay with all information being older than this? It's basically you did the research 3 years ago and have not looked at it since. And you just kind of have to accept it that way. There is a version that you can pay for of ChatGPT that does give some newer results, but you can't even touch it if you're not paying for it, and it's non-conversational. It's API only, so it doesn't give you like that type of interaction that people associate with modern AI. It's very much, it's meant for technical work. It is not meant for it's not meant for normal people to do normal conversations like that, right? And it certainly is not tuned to give you information about Nicaragua. Although it might give you better information, it won't give it to you in a way that you particularly like in most cases. Literally, like the format won't be a thing that you like to use. Tom says, Scott, what an amazing video you did on expats scamming expats. You're a real truth teller. Thanks, Tom. I appreciate that. That was actually one, I can't remember. I recorded that one months ago. Something happened and I felt compelled to make that video, and I think I had made another video that I felt was too similar or was too close to when something had happened. The nice thing is I let it go long enough that I don't remember what it was associated with. So if anyone's like, you were talking about me or you're talking about this situation, you might be right. I don't know. I intentionally held that one a long time, and let me tell you, I was so busy this week. I was so happy when a video was already done for today. I've been watching for months. I'm like, I got one done out in the future. So it's an old one. The other one I did that came out today by accident because I had released it. If you guys watched, there was a dark one and then it came out lighter because I had to re-release it. That one was recorded in the middle of the night last night. So it's pretty busy. Luke has some information there. My scrolling just went crazy. Luke says that the Pensionado has gone up to 1,200. Are you sure about that, Luke? Are you sure it's not 1,000? I know the Rentista is 1,250, not 1,200. But did the Pensionado go up too? And for anyone who's wondering, if you have a mix, some people ask about this. What if I have most of a Pensionado, but I have to add in some Rentista money? No. You're either Rentista or you're not Rentista. It's an all or nothing thing. Leo says, you did a masterful job of explaining the best that you knew, but I would be thrilled if you could have a person from the Nicaraguan gay community on your program or on the live stream. Great job. I would like to do that. Yeah, I think that that's a good idea. Both expat, and I have had someone from the expat gay community on the show a few times. You guys just may not know that they are. And I do have some ideas of people to maybe get on that are Nicaraguan. And so I do think that that would be valuable for sure. And I do want to look at some non-Nicaraguan communities as well, right? I do have some really close friends that are, and one is very, very active in the community, as in organizing parades and stuff at national levels and working with governments on programs and such within Latin America, but not here, that I think would be very valuable as well. So I had some good ideas as I was doing the video last night, but I agree with you, Leo. That's something that's needed. Honeybee says, I'm short a couple of $100 because I decided to take my SS at 62. SS will count as Pensionado, but that is the one that it's the only thing in the United States that typically works as Pensionado, and everyone's on the same boat. Their SS is too low, and so they have to make it up with something, and then they qualify as Rentista, and then they have to have a higher number. It doesn't make you spend more money. It just, the government here wants to see that comfort of knowing you're going to be able to pay your bills. TJ says, when it comes to politics, I usually steer clear of it since my views don't really match up with most expats, especially regarding immigration. Honeybee Journey says, Luke, it seems $12.50 is the amount for passive income. It's the amount for rentista income, which is not always, it's basically passive. Honeybee says, reported as current, yep. Short a couple $100, darn. Luke says, I think I'll hold the land speed record for Pensionado approval, 19 days. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Honeybee Journey says, sorry, what about people living with Social Security? What are they called? If you're pure Social Security, you're Pensionado. If you have that Social Security and mix in other things, which is what almost everyone does, because Social Security just isn't generally that big, then you're Rentista. Even though that portion, Social Security itself is a pension. Or they treat it as a pension. It's not technically a pension, but that's semantics. And for those wondering, the thing that matters is that a pension is absolutely guaranteed. It's backed by a government, right, or some big organization, but it's a guaranteed amount of money. Whereas a rentista may feel guaranteed, but it's actually variable and has risk. And so on rentista, it's easier to make more, but it's at risk, right? Honeybee says, gotcha, I'm bummed because I'm under that amount. If you're under that amount, you're going to be under that amount everywhere. Like, we're the lowest. Us in Paraguay, to all of my knowledge, we are the most affordable places that you can be. Luke says, don't do the FBI background or the health cert in the States for residency. Do Interpol and local health cert after you have found a long-term rental. Both expire in 90 days. Yes, definitely. Do all that here. Very easy and quick. Luke says, SA is considered a pension. I think he means SS is considered a pension. Veterans disability is considered a pension. Yes, veterans would be the same. Honeybee left a donation. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Honeybee says, I'm still under the amount. Would they allow me to teach English online with an American company? You have unlimited right to work online, right? Working, there is no place in the world that allows you to work as much as Nicaragua. You just can't work a Nicaraguan job, right? We have a lot of videos about this. You can work from Nicaragua, no limits, no penalties, no taxes, but you can't work in Nicaragua. And that is something that the way that Americans tend to talk about work doesn't actually make sense and misleads them. If you work on the international stage, the work where you work versus where you are more discrete things. So, for example, my company that I work for, that I'm employed by, is an American company. Therefore, I work in the United States, right? And the United States recognizes me as working in the United States. Nicaragua recognizes me as working in the United States. Hay un perro en la puerta, por favor. Pienso que sí. No? Oh, quizás es tu silla. Ah, okay. And so people get very confused about this, right? But these terms are, where you work is generally a term for where the work is done, right? That's where you work. When you say where you work, the thing that the where refers to is the work, not you. And I know that it sounds like what couldn't apply to either, and you could kind of make an argument for that, but it's not in how it's used. It's where the work is done. When those two things are not the same place, where you work is where you work, right? And I think we all, as native English speakers, if push comes to shove, we all go, oh yeah, it couldn't be the other way, even though it feels like it. And then where you are when you work we all accept is where your body is, right? And so if you are sitting in Nicaragua, you're allowed to be in Nicaragua and work in the United States. The U.S. is okay with that. Nicaragua is okay with that. Now, the U.S. is going to tax you, of course, because they tax you anywhere. They don't care where you're working. They don't care where you are. Neither of those things are factors as to whether or not you get taxed. Period. Just doesn't matter. U.S. doesn't care, right? Which is one of the reasons why the U.S. is one of the most willing to let people be expats countries, because they always get their taxes under all circumstances. But they do give, if you, not where the work is, but where you are, is not in the U.S., if where you work from, not where you work, is outside the U.S., then you can get the foreign earned tax credit and you get a huge tax benefit, assuming you make enough money to make it a big benefit. But it is a pretty big bonus that really does change people's lives. And so, yeah. Now, to be clear, Honeybee, absolutely everybody who doesn't have a plan about what they're going to do for work jumps on Can I Teach English? So if you can imagine a job, a career that has fewer open opportunities than teaching English online, I would like to know what it is. I literally know of no career more not in demand. Now, teaching English, big demand, but it's all in person in other countries. But teaching online, there are basically every person in the UK, every person in America, every person in Canada, every person in Australia, every person in New Zealand, and about an equal number of people around the world who know it really well as a second language, are all anxious to get fully remote jobs and would love to teach. And teaching English online is just one of the easiest things, or sounds like it at least, right? Maybe it's not easy, but until you're actually doing it, you don't know that. And so there's a limited number of online places to have you teach English, and especially today, as AI is taking over, as Duolingo is taking over, the number of people that can teach online is not increasing, it's decreasing. That is not a reliable way to make any real amount of money. Nothing will be harder, right? Because you will be competing against third world workers who are willing to work below the minimum wage of their own country. And to give you an example, an English teacher teaching in person in Nicaragua. So this is above the online, right? If you can teach in person, like then you're in demand to some degree. If online is the lowest paying, an English teacher in Nicaragua would not make $200 in a month. And if you teach locally, you have to pay taxes. But that's not what you're looking to do. And you would be tax-free, but you'd potentially be below $200 a month. And if you're not, wow, where did you find that, right? Everybody will want to know how to get into that. Luke says, prior to the upcoming holiday on Saturday, the fireworks have been sporadic all week. Yeah, we heard them here too, even out in the country. Luke says, got to run downstairs to order my dinner. I love having an asado 60 feet outside my door. Yay! Asado Los Pofis of Barrio Guanuca. Guanuca. It's a barrio we don't say very often. Honeybee says, you're right. We are. Thank you. But yeah, it's... you're always going to... There's almost certainly... Nearly everyone has some personal skill that they haven't thought about that is likely to grant them a higher income than teaching English. Sometimes it is not everyone. Sometimes it's just really challenging. And some people get lucky and get good English jobs. It's few and far between, right? You've really got to be the lucky one to do it. And, of course, if you're going to teach English online, you got to have the TEFL and other stuff. And so because it's become very competitive, it's like working IT in Austin, Texas. Everyone's willing to work at minimum wage because they just want an excuse to be able to live there. And so that's great for people who are like, I want to live here at any cost. Well, you can, but the cost is pretty high. So, well, now you guys got quiet, but we did have quite a bit to talk about there, so I appreciate the topics. That's very good. And Marcella is here tonight. She is sitting on the other side of the camera. And I don't know if she's going to be on the show tonight or not. She is now about 16 days past her final chemo treatment. So this is the longest that she has been without having to have her IV. And for those who are wondering about the GoFundMe, please hold on to the money. We're going to get that figured out. We're hoping the GoFundMe will work. They're giving us problems because we're in Nicaragua. And I know they refunded everyone, and some people have given back, and it's super complicated. I'm working on that, so just hold out. She really does need those funds. Like, that is a big financial help that's really been important to her, and all that money was lost. All the money that people think that she got all went back. So all the money she was depending on for the next 2 years vanished. So we're working on figuring that out and getting back to that. So just be aware. But people always want to know. So that is the situation there. But from a purely physical standpoint, this is the longest she's been since January without having to get an injection. And the injections for her are outrageously painful and make her very sick for a very long time. The first ones, it would be like 3-4 days, and then she'd have some time to recover, and then she'd be feeling good, then she'd go back again, and then feel terrible and go through this cycle as you do in chemo. But getting towards the end, it just got, as it's supposed to, made her feel worse and worse and worse, and really ran her down. And so by the end, obviously it was pretty awful, which is what chemo's supposed to do. But now she's had more time to recover, because normally she would get it every other Monday. So at most she would ever get 13 days to start recovering and then get hit with it again. But now she's at like 17 days, so it's a lot, 16 days. It's a lot more time since chemo. So she's got a lot more energy and feeling better. But she has an appointment in a week to go get information, and they believe she's going to be starting radiation therapy very soon because the chemo did not do all the things that it needed to do. So the next stage is coming, and we'll see. We're very hopeful that because the chemo was so bad for her, because she was allergic to the medicine that makes you feel better, the pain meds from it, and so because of the allergies, it made it so much worse than it should have been. Because normally you're on painkillers. Normally you every piece of it was something that was really hard for her. So it was a very trying experience beyond what it normally would be. So we're hoping that the radiation therapy or radiation treatment, radiation therapy, will at least be no worse than normal radiation therapy. Right, so that's where we're hoping, right? So we're long way from out of the woods, but hopefully past at least the allergy stages that she has been in up until now. So that's the current update. So she is here and feeling a bit better. Honeybee says, sorry to hear. Oh, no. It first says, yes, I have 2 TEFL certifications. Sounds like I still need the $1,000 as a pensions in my case. Oh, well. Yes, it's also, you can work online, but those won't count as Rentista income. It'll be salary income. And the salary income is tax-free. So it's great that you can have more money, but it won't count towards your retirement number. So if you want to work and make money for your retirement, you need to either find a business that will do this for you, or you need to set up a business in the U.S. or wherever, not in Nicaragua, somewhere outside Nicaragua, and do work, sell things. Doesn't matter what that company does, right? That company can use you as an employee, doesn't matter. Have that company pay you a rentista amount, so being paid in dividends. Now, the U.S. will tax that, but it's not a high tax rate. Dividends are a lower tax rate in the United States. So it's not the end of the world by any stretch, especially at a low amount. And then you'll be able to claim that as rentista, because it is rentista. That's what rentista is. Rentista is basically what investors make versus what employees make. And in the U.S., there's a lot of capability to maneuver which one is which, depending on your situation. If you own your own business, even if it's a one-person LLC, you have a lot of power in the U.S. to determine how that's going to be represented, how it's talked about, and so forth. And in most cases, most of us who live outside the United States and do that, we want to take salaries at least up to a very high number, because those are tax-free, because we get a tax deferment, or not a deferment, but a tax exception, because we're outside the United States. However, if you need to show a non-income source of revenue, Then you want to convert that to a Rentista, which is the actual English word for it. People think that that's a Spanish word. It is not. Rentista is the actual English word for it. Income, we just don't use that very often. We say investor income or dividend income, but Rentista income, because it'll show up differently on your taxes, and then you just pay that tax rate to the United States for that amount. If you were to, for example, have a small business, and this is a very small business. Let's just use Honeybee's example. Honeybee is going to bring in $1,000 of Social Security, but $9.99, right? Just going to miss the cutoff. I mean, first of all, they'll probably let you skim, but if you just miss the cutoff, then let's say he's got to make an extra $250 to qualify for the Rentista. So if he does this, he's going to have to form a company in the United States and take $250 per month as a dividend income. No big deal. And then pay taxes on that. I believe that the qualification is before the taxes, but I'm not 100% sure. Then, if the company makes more money than that, say it brings in a total of $500 a month, it wouldn't matter too much because the numbers are so small, you're going to be tax-free no matter what. But if you're bringing in tiny numbers like that, you want to bring them in via salary once you get past anything like the Rentista numbers, right? So Nicaragua requires that Rentista, but once you don't require that anymore because you're making enough money, then you want everything else to be salary. And the reason is because salary, whether it's because you're only making $10,000 a year, well, if you only make $10,000 a year, the United States does not tax you. And if you only make $125,000 a year and live outside the United States does not tax you. So you want to take that tax-free salary versus a paying taxes Rentista when the option exists. But if you get significantly above that $125,000 number, something above like say somewhere around $150,000, your tax rate as a taxpayer as a salary starts to become higher than the tax rate as a Rentista. And so what you want to do is balance that to where you get your maximum salary benefit and then take no more as salary and take the rest as Rentista income and pay the flat rate that you pay for corporate income taxes in the United States, which is a very low number, such a low number worldwide that the U.S. qualifies as a tax haven, right? It's a tax haven country. And so since you're from a tax haven, you definitely want to take advantage of it because for you, it's not considered tax fraud. Right, it's not international tax fraud because you're an American, presumably. But if you were not from the United States and you use the United States as the basis for your business so that you can pay such incredibly low taxes in a jurisdiction you don't live in, it is generally considered a tax haven, and many places would consider that fraud. Now, there's no laundering done in the U.S., right? The U.S. has very tight controls on laundering, but for just not paying your global taxes, yeah, the U.S. is not considered one of those places that's good for business because of that low tax rate. Someone came on the channel and was complaining about that recently, and they kept saying, "Oh, Nicaragua's a tax haven," but they very clearly had it backwards, and obviously they knew they had it backwards, and they were just making that up. It is the other way around. Nicaragua has completely normal tax rates on businesses for the global world, and tax havens is only a reference to business taxes. It's never a reference to personal taxes. It's just that's not what a tax haven is. So that's an interesting point there. Honeybee says, got it. Vince is here. He says, hi, Scott. How's it going, Vince? Andrew O'Neill is here. Hey, Andrew. How are you? Let's see. I am getting some work done in the background. All right. How many people are on? I can't actually see how many people are on because I've got none of my tools up tonight. I never do this. It's actually a very different experience. We got 25 people on. Not bad. Not bad. And at some point, I'm supposed to be getting pupusas tonight. TJ says, I thought the tax exemption was $106,000 for the U.S. It changes every year, TJ. It should be 126 this year. I think it's like 128 next year. We could ask someone. Andrew, do you know? Someone who has the actual... It's a pretty big number. Oh, Honeybee recommends... He does recommend. Reminds everyone, is what I meant to say, to like this video. Take a moment and hit that thumbs up. That does matter. Thank you. I forget to say those things. I'm looking up to see if I can get the exact number. Oh, according to Taxes for Expats, the 2025 number moved up to 130,000. I'll have to double check if that's true. I'm not skimming by at that number, so I'm not worried about whether it's 125 or 130. It's above what I get. So 2024 is the 126 number. So I was right. Oh, 126.5 number, and that's straight from the IRS. Sorry. And so apparently it's moved up to 130. I think I just saw that they were expecting it to go to 128. Inflation must have taken it up more. But yeah, I see multiple sources saying it's 130. And that is, according to Wikipedia, but we already knew this, if you're filing jointly, right, as a married couple, you each get up to 130. So you can have a combined income, if balanced well, of $260,000 completely tax-free, with your income coming from anywhere in the world, as long as you don't live in the United States but are an American. There's also, according to Wikipedia, this I've never looked into. With correct situations, you can get up to $56.99, but not $57 per day in 2025 as housing expenses. But that gets complicated. That's you have to justify it and prove it and all these things. But the exemption is just the exemption. Everyone gets it. It's automatic. There's no qualifying. There's no nothing like that. Honeybee says 25 people on the channel. How's the weather in the summer? Well, so the weather's the same all year round. The only difference is not the temperature, but rain. So 6 months, winter, rains. 6 months, summer, is dry. Other than that, it's always warm to hot. And that's about it, right? So it's a very straightforward weather country. You kind of, know what you're going to get. And there's a lot of people who are like, oh, I can take the heat, but I can't take the rain, or I can take the heat and I don't like the dry. And so they stay here for, 6 months or whatever, and then head somewhere else to avoid whatever particular weather situation that they're not fond of. And for a lot of people, it's the dry season because it feels hotter in many ways. And so they'll do something like go back home to the U.S. or go up to Guatemala, where temperatures are much lower. Andrew says, have you heard of anyone having to leave Nicaragua to go back to the USA because of jury duty? No, you don't have to go for jury duty if you live in Nicaragua, because if you think about it, how could you qualify for jury duty? If you are not present in the place, you are not a peer that is eligible for jury duty. So they can't recall you. I mean, a court could try to recall you, but just living inside the United States. So as someone who lives outside the United States, never once in the last decade have I been called for jury duty. Prior to that, when I did live in the United States, I would still move pretty frequently, clearly not for the purpose of avoiding jury duty. That would be a really costly and difficult way to avoid jury duty. Like, you could just act crazy if you would need to get out of jury duty. But if you live a lifestyle like I did, where I'm constantly working, running my own business, moving all over the country, and then eventually over the world, but moving all over the country, no American technology in government system could put me in for jury duty fast enough before I was in the wrong place. And so I would get summoned to jury duty, and I would just call them up every time and say, okay, no problem. I will come in for jury duty. I am not trying to get out of this. I am not playing any games here. This is my current address. This is how long I've been there. Do I qualify? And every single time they would go, oh, sorry, no. You're in the wrong town, in the wrong county, in the wrong state, doesn't matter. right? And so, same thing, right? If you think about people who have to work overseas, right? Oh, you got hired as a specialty engineer on dams, and you've moved your family to Singapore. I guess there's probably not dams in Singapore, but you know what I mean. You're like, oh, you're going to move your family to India, and you're engineering, hydroelectric dams for big Indian companies. And then you get a letter in the mail that says, I'm sorry, you have to leave your family behind, potentially leaving your children behind. You have to fly to the United States for a potentially indefinite amount of time. You have to be paid way below minimum wage and be given ham and cheese sandwiches twice a day. And for the next month or two, you may be stuck in jury duty and unable to earn a living. You're going to lose your job. Your kids are going to be abandoned. They're going to be taken by the neighbors and sold on the black market. And you're not going to be able to get back to them because you can't afford a flight back. Obviously, that is not something that people who work overseas have to worry about, right? When you put it into that context, you go, okay, whatever, however it works, there's no way they can recall me, right? And so that's just how it works, right? Like if you're actually living overseas, and the same thing, if you're on vacation, no one gets recalled from vacation for jury duty. You may get summoned while you're on vacation, but you just say, well, I'm on vacation. This is when I'm back. I can come as soon as I'm back. I can come later. Like, what do you want to do, right? And most people don't even know when they're on vacation. They find out when they get back. But if you're on vacation for 6 months or so, then typically you're going to know. Humidity, Honeybee asked about. So during the winter now, it is pretty humid. During the summer, the opposite time, it's not that humid. It is not crazy dry. We're not dry like a desert or anything like that, but it is relatively dry. Which is why it feels cooler, even though, I mean, it is technically, but it's we're very similar to Dallas for humidity. We're kind of middle of the road. Alan says, foreign earned income exclusion for tax year 2025. The foreign earned income exclusion increases to $130,000 from $126,500 from the tax year 2024. Thanks, Alan. Alan says, I was called for jury duty. I just filled out a form that I was going to be out of the country for an extended time. Super easy. Nice. Andrew says, got it. Thanks, Scott. That's actually nice to know that it's just a form you fill out. For my personal experience has always been, I just call in and say, this is the situation, and someone on the phone just goes, never mind, you're off the list. And then it's all set. Because they don't want to deal with you either, right? They know that a certain percentage of people are demonstrably out of the country, and if they try to, like, if you call from if you have some way to show you're out of the country, like they're just going to waste their time trying to do anything. Like, you've got them, so they don't want to put up with that. They want to move on and find real people, because they're just workers like anyone else, and they don't want to spin their wheels for no reason. Just makes extra work for them. So, yes. But the foreign earned income exclusion. So I actually just had to deal with this for something. And something I've not mentioned on the show previously that I need to mention is on your first year living outside the country, you actually get a sliding year. I was not aware of this. It is not surprising because it makes sense and it's fair. And if they didn't do this, it would feel unfair. But it's, so if you start, so let's say it's today, right? Today's July 17th. We'll say it's halfway through the year. If you halfway through the year move out of the country, once the time has passed and you can prove that you did remain out of the country long enough, that becomes tax-free. It's not tax-free in that time, but in the future they can go back and give you that tax money. So if you are, so this is 2025. If you move now, in 2026 when they file your taxes, you got to pay your taxes because you weren't out of the country yet. But by 2027, they could go back and amend your taxes in 2026 for the 2025 year and say, look, he did stay out of the country all this time. So therefore, that started back in July of 2025. Therefore, they get half a year. So we'll just say it's half a year, right? July 1st or whatever. That 130 gets cut in half, but that's still 65,000. So you get 65,000 for that first year as a sliding number. For the percentage of the year that you ended up being out of the country. Now, if you leave the country on December 31st before midnight and you're out from January 1st to December 31st, then when you file your taxes that very first time, you don't have to worry about that sliding rule. You get your benefit right away because you started just a little bit earlier and it's enough that you're able to prove it by the time you pay your taxes. Same thing would happen if you did it between January 1st and April 15th. You would be able to make that claim that you had proven you were then out of the country for the sliding rule year before you filed your taxes, right? So there's some ways to have it apply there if it's significant enough. So that's an important one to know. I always say don't bank on that because you never know when you're going to leave the country and be like, oh, I didn't stay out long enough and I was banking on that, so I didn't collect enough money for taxes or whatever. Don't do that. Maybe after you've done it for a long time, but in that first year, just assume something's going to go wrong. But when you go to file, make sure you go back and amend and get your money back once you've proven that you really did justify it. Foxy Spartan is here. Hey, Foxy, how's it going? I'm actually getting a fair bit of work done in the background here. I'm feeling a little bit more productive, and I get to talk to people. And Marcella left. I don't know where she went. Maybe she's out hunting down pupusas. I have no idea. It's funny living. So we grew up. My kids grew up in Texas, and so I'm from New York. So pupusas are unheard of. But we lived in Little Salvador in Texas for a really long time. So my kids, that's where they grew up the most, and pupusas were everywhere. And so they have always had pupusas. That's just a normal food to them. It's funny because to me, it's forever going to be this exotic Salvadoran food, right? Even here in Nicaragua, like there's only so many of them. We got this fancy Salvadoran food, and we all really like it. But my daughter is like, yeah, I really love pupusas. She's all excited that we're getting pupusas. She's like, I want to get masa so I can make my own pupusas. I'm like, what? That's crazy. But to her, it's her native food, right? Because she grew up in Little Salvador when she was little and lived in Nicaragua, not that far from the Salvadoran border, the rest of her life, right? So it's very funny. Foxy says, going great, my friend. Thank you for all you do with all the info and videos. Well, my pleasure. Rene is here. Hi, in a medical emergency. In case of, I thought he was saying he was in a medical emergency. In case of a medical emergency, is there ambulance services? Absolutely, there are ambulances all over the country. And we've used them, right? And they're free, unlike the United States where they're outrageously expensive. You are hopefully going to donate to them when you do need to use them. So always have a little bit, but it's not, the expected donation. We donate more than most people for that because we've had to use it a few times, and I definitely appreciate the fact that they have saved our butts more than once. I tend to give them like 1,000 cord when they pick it. It's like $30, but if you think about that's actually quite good for what they do. If they're taking you across the country, that's they're just taking us a few blocks. It's like we don't want to get in a car. We want someone here as fast as possible, so we call the ambulance. They're only driving for 5-10 minutes. If you're calling from here and you're having them take you to Managua, definitely pay them more than you would pay a taxi. Right, I'm talking about a thing that a taxi ride would have been 60 to 100 cords. I'm paying them 10 to 20 times that. If you're going to Managua, from Leon, where I live, definitely give them $200-300 or whatever, 20,000 cord or something. Make sure you're taking care of them because those are volunteers and people are paying for that fuel and all. Like make sure you are covering all the costs and taking care of those guys when they do it. But when you need it, it is a free service. Yeah, we have basically anything you can imagine as a necessary medical thing here. We're gonna have, right? It's you're never caught in that like, what would you do? But when there's then like extended things, like someone was asking about some very specific treatments today. Well, there's a lot of things that we don't have specific treatments on. But if you were here and in that situation, you would have plenty of time to go, I have to go somewhere else, and have plenty of time to get there and not have it be a medical problem. You may be sad that this couldn't be the place that you live all the time and get your medical treatments. I understand. But it wouldn't be like, oh no, what am I going to do? I'm trapped in Nicaragua and I can't get to where I need to go. No, we pretty much have that covered. TJ says, I'm still waiting for the live in Granada version. Oh my gosh, I know. TJ, I'm still waiting for my driver's license to arrive in the mail. Ellen says, Anna has said that donations are very expected. They definitely are very expected, right? It's how they keep the system going for the ambulance. So it's almost like it's a payment, but if you are in a situation where you have no money or you are insanely poor, it is free, right? But it should really be expected that if you're using the free ambulance, that is for the people that's for unemployed Nicaraguans, right? That is for the absolute destitute of Nicaraguan society. That is not meant for expats. Please do not abuse that. If you have to have someone meet you at the hospital and give money to the ambulance, that's okay. But yeah, always take care of them. And there's quite a few. And of course we have, fire departments and police departments and all those kinds of things, just like you would expect, and fire engines and all that. It's a modern country. We've got our quirks, and it's an interesting place, and there's a lot of things that are going to surprise you. But basic services are kind of universal. You can't live without them. Now, China ambulance service is pretty wild because they drive over everybody. It's like this guy that's almost going to die in the back. It's worth killing 10 normal people. But if they're in the way, I totally get it. Andrew says, hey, Scott, I am also wondering because I'm currently teaching video editing to students all around the world on Zoom as a 1099 through a company called OutSchool. They have a policy that states... I'm hoping he's got some more information coming. Bum, bum, bum. Ba-da-da-dum. You have to teach at least 6 months out of the year in the U.S. That's super weird. I wonder why they do that. I don't know where you're going to go with that. I assume you have more coming, but you can be absolutely sure that that is a made-up rule because they don't like places that are not American. Because there is nothing in the United States that has a rule like that. Is there any way for them to know if I spend more than 6 months in Nicaragua? So this gets into a really complicated situation. So let's talk about this in the grand sense of things, right? Does someone have the ability to know? So let's start. There's two things. If the United States government says you're not allowed to be someplace, right? So your government says you're not allowed to be in Nicaragua. Well, they have limited rights as to what they can do to monitor you. You can look up what those rights are, and maybe they break those rights, they violate those rights, and they spy on you anyway, but they can't use them in a court, right? Then they'd have to admit that they did that, so they can't do that. The United States also doesn't say you can't do that, so it doesn't matter, but just as a theory. When you're talking about an employer, they don't have the same rules. On one side, there's a lot of things that the government can do that they can't. But on the other side, they don't have to prove that you're outside the United States. They just have to suspect that you're outside the United States. They can just fire you because they don't like you. It doesn't matter that you're actually breaking rules or not breaking rules. They actually don't need rules. Especially as a 1099, you're not an employee, right? Now, technically, this is worth noting, if they say you have to be inside the United States during that time, do we have any lawyers on the show? That sounds like a duck, and if it walks like a duck, and it sounds like a duck, it's a duck. The United States uses a thing called duck law. So your employer is very likely violating U.S. employment law. What you are mentioning sounds, we can't prove it from this one statement alone, but it sounds very, 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 very like tax fraud. Your employer does not have so employers have the right to dictate where you work. Contractors do not, contractees, people who are hiring contractors, do not have the legal right to determine where you work. So that they're paying you on a 1099 and dictating where you work means you're an employee. And that means that you are required to pay your W-2 taxes. And that means that your employer is committing fraud. So that's the first thing. You're dealing with a fraudulent employer, I would say 95% certain. The chances that you're on a 1099 and they're not committing fraud right on the verge of not at all. Like there's almost no possibility. We could go through the list of the duct typing as used by the IRS to determine when it is and isn't fraud, but the thing you described is like that's the only thing you need in most cases, right? They would, if you pulled that out, if you showed that to a lawyer and they called them on it, they would pay whatever it is they needed to get you from suing. You're very powerful there. Now, so now you're in a situation, you're dealing with tax evaders, and they can fire you, and you can sue them, right? You have an antagonistic relationship, obviously, with these people. So it's about whatever you can get away with, really, at the end of the day, is what matters. Now, so can they tell you're in Nicaragua? So we've had some discussions on this, and people who work in security and work for some really unscrupulous or stupid, corrupt companies who spend all their time and money trying to figure out where their employees are instead of determining which of their employees are valuable, which just the nature of doing that tells you that it's not a legit company, right? No legit company cares where you are unless they have a further requirement. Like, you could be a legit company that works for the United States Department of Defense, and the Department of Defense says you must meet these requirements to be our contractor. Well, it is what it is, right? So that doesn't reflect on that company. But if you're a business owner, right, or more importantly, if you're the CEO of a company and you have investors and you say, I know it cost us money and we lose some of our best people and we don't get as good a work, but we've decided not to judge our people by how much money they make us or how good of a job they do. We decided to determine how much time they spend in the United States because I care more about promoting Americanism than I do about making profits. One, that is one of the most anti-American things you could imagine saying. Like, what is the greater antithesis of the American culture than to say, screw money and business, all I care about is racism? But it's also a flat-out violation of American fiduciary responsibility laws and violates the spirit and the letter of the law of anyone running a business that has investors. Now, if every single investor was on board and said, oh, all of us are okay not making as much money because we're all equally willing to be racist and lose money in order to make this political statement, that is allowed, right? There is that exception. But if a single investor anywhere is unaware or not in agreement, it becomes a crime. It's a civil crime, but it's still illegal, right? It violates basic investment rules, and any one of those investors can sue them, right? And say, I invested in good faith, you stole my money, right? It is theft from the investors. I take this very seriously, right? I work in business consulting. This is what embezzlement looks like, right? That is whoever's in charge of that business is using their power to take the investor's money and steal it, not to put in their pocket directly, but to fund some personal political agenda that is costing their investors money. That's theft. That is what theft is, right? So not only are you dealing with tax fraud, you're definitely dealing with theft as long as the company has investors. Okay. All that said, can they detect that you're in Nicaragua? There's a lot of layers here. Are they providing you a computer? Do they have software that is spying on you? Do they, you can do an awful lot of things. So as an employer, they can be like, well, we're going to put a private eye on you. We're going to follow you. We're going to turn on the camera on your laptop and spy on you. We're going to test your network latency. There's a ton of things you can do, and all they have to do is suspect you're somewhere. And then they go, well, we're going to fire you because we suspect you're somewhere. Realistically, are they going to care? Well, probably not, because they're letting you be gone half the year. So how much effort are they really going to put into making sure that the other half of the year you're not there? Probably not a ton. But we're guessing, right? We would have to really dig into exactly what software they give you, exactly how much control of your computer that you've given up, exactly how nefarious they're behaving, and a bunch of things. to really dig into just what tools are at their disposal to determine where you are. In most cases like this, yeah, just using a VPN or a remote computer. A remote computer would be difficult for teaching video editing, but it depends what exactly you do. But using a VPN, and the thing that people who really want to do a good job with a VPN, like you can go get a VPN service, but those are easily detectable. They won't know where you are, but they'll know you're up to something. Right? Now, if you use a VPN all the time, like use it now while you're in the United States, and then they're like, hey, you weren't in the United States. You'd be like, I was, and I can prove it, like send pictures of your passport. Right? Then you've got a powerful tool that you're always on a VPN. And lots of people are always on a VPN. And that's not like obviously VPN companies want to sell that concept that being on a VPN all the time is a good thing. All right, sell VPNs to people who aren't traveling. And you say, well, yeah, of course, I use a VPN all the time for my Netflix, for all kinds of things. So you can actually make your, because of the way that they're probably working, you could just bounce around all over the world and be like, yep, oh, tonight we're watching Canadian Netflix. And then, oh, we were on Korean Netflix. And if you ever slip up, you're like, yeah, we're on Nicaraguan Netflix that one day. And they may have no idea where you are at all, ever. Okay, so they are not providing me a computer, but they are providing me the Zoom account. So under normal conditions, so Zoom can be done purely from your browser. Under normal conditions, Zoom does not know where you are, and Zoom is definitely not in the business of spying on you. That would make people really wary of using it. So that's not something that they are likely to do, right? They don't want to burn bridges and make people hate them. They want you to sell them. So you're probably all set there. They have extremely little information about you if all you're doing is connecting through a Zoom account. Now, do you connect anything else? Do you use any of their websites or anything? That would tell us a little bit more. All those things, they may be using different tools to try to guess where you are, which is always the case of what they're doing. The simplest thing that's super effective is finding a family member that's willing to let you use their internet access. Most Americans have 10 times to 100 times the internet access that they need for what they're doing. So they'll never notice that you're using it under normal circumstances. Get a hardware router that you can put at their place, and then get one that you bring with you or buy one here, whatever, that connects to it. And then do your own VPN that doesn't go through a major VPN provider, because everybody can really easily tell when you're using a commercial VPN. Again, it will hide where you are, but it won't hide the fact that you're on a VPN, because they all exit through known points. So having someone's house, you would actually exit from their house. And so it would be like, oh. And so for me, what I could do, I don't need to do this, but my dad's on here. So if I was like, oh no, I have to do this thing and I have to hide where I am, I could just put a $100 router at my dad's house and route all of my traffic from the house up to my dad's, and then go on his internet when I'm working, and it would look and act exactly like I was at his house in New York. Right, and that's a really powerful way to hide. And now, as long as they don't have software on your computer. Once they put software on your computer, then they can do things like detect the VPN. They can connect. They can detect your local connection. They can try to get a hold of your hardware. Maybe you've got GPS hardware going on. Maybe you've got a Wi-Fi network that shows up, and those things are fingerprinted. And so people talk about security. People talk about how their companies put software that spies not just on the person, but spies on all the networks around them and guesses where they are based on the names of nearby Wi-Fi networks, things like that. So there's things you need to be aware that if you leak that information, it's going to get out there. But if you lock that down and don't have that information available, and they don't have software on your computer, then there's really nothing that they can do, and you're in pretty good shape. And in a lot of cases, right, they don't have the right to spy on you in that way, and so you can put them into a position where, hey, you didn't have software on my computer, and I didn't give you this information, and so I'd like to know how you got it. And if they want to fire you, you can, be like, I have reason to believe that they hacked my computer, and then really go after them, right? So sometimes that's all it takes. Alan says, Unified Dream Machine at my parents' house has a VPN. I can just download software at my house in Leon and connect. I normally use private internet access, but some sites are blocked to that, so once in a while I connect through my parents' house when the company blocks known VPNs. Yep. But I would say, whatever you're going to do, set it all up and start doing it long before you move, because it'll do a couple things. One, it'll prove whatever theory you want to have, right? Because it'll be like, oh, this VPN, does it show up to them? And you'll either know, either it does show up and they don't care, or it doesn't show up and they don't know. It'll establish a pattern, and you want to if they're going to call you for being not in the U.S. Hey, you've not been in the U.S. for a really long time. You can be like, what are you talking about? I haven't left the U.S. What would make you think that, right? And then it's on them to try to come up with why you weren't in the U.S. and that you were in the U.S. will make it really hard for them to prove, because it's impossible, right? Because you weren't, and it'll be really easy for you to prove that you were in the U.S. because you are, right? And at any moment you can be like, here I am. What are you talking about? So that would be my thought process on that. Luke is back with tacos, nachos, and a bag of Jamaica. Andrew says, thanks, you're welcome. And the nice thing, Andrew, about having a hardware VPN is you can have multiple devices, and all of them will behave as if they're in the United States transparently, regardless of what they are. So if you have I don't have one sitting here, but if you have a desk phone, like a physical desk phone, if you have so if you have VoIP from like a commercial VoIP vendor, you can put the software on your cell phone and make calls from this. And if you have a VPN, that call will originate from the United States, not just from a phone perspective, but from a anything perspective, right? And if you have a desk phone, same thing. It'll go through that VPN. So a lot of those VPNs that you see, like, NordVPN or whatever, they don't have a way maybe they have a way for your cell phone, but they don't have a way for your desk phone and other things like that to behave like they're in the United States. But a hardware one, like a Unified Dream Machine that Alan mentions, those will do that. And so they're pretty powerful that they can grab other things. You can also build your own with like OpenVPN, or as TJ just mentioned, Tailscale. And I actually use Tailscale with my dad, it's broken at the moment. So that he can watch movies from my house here in Nicaragua, because I have a movie server in the house, right? So he's able to watch what's in the house here in the United States over that very easily. And so, but that takes a little bit more expertise, right? It's not a big deal, but having a Tailscale exit node could be, I assume, anyone tried this? Put that on like a Raspberry Pi. I got one right here, I think. Oh, I had one right here. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. Right, so I've got a little Raspberry Pi sitting here, and something little like this. Obviously, you put a case on it. This is kind of ridiculous with no case, but you can put a tiny little case on this, or even just heat sinks, and stick this bad boy at someone's house, and you just plug it in. It's got Wi-Fi, and you can plug it in. You can put a keyboard and mouse on it. You can put a monitor on it, but you don't need to. Right, plug this in and have this be your router, your VPN device at someone's house. Ta-da! And if you need to go that extra step, you can run a web browser on this or whatever, and actually remote into it, and use that in a pinch. Now, this is a Raspberry 4. They don't work that great for that. They work, but they're meh. But a Raspberry 5 now has a lot more power than this, and these are old, right? We brought these with us, not new, in 2021 early, right? So these were not new in I think they're from 2019 actually, right? So 6-year-old. This one actually has 8 gigs of RAM. This is a nice one that I really should hook up and use for something somewhere. I need to get. I don't know where my heatsink for it is. Oh, I think I do. I think it's in Chinandega. It's sitting in an office. But I really like Raspberry Pis. They're super cute and use hardly any power. They're good for a lot of things. So if you can get like an 8 gig Raspberry Pi 5 with just like a nice big passive heatsink, that thing uses like no power, makes no noise whatsoever, can sit on a shelf somewhere and just be used and do a bunch of stuff. TJ says yes, you can. I assumed, but I hadn't tried. So you could put Tailscale on one of those, or OpenVPN, or any number of things, and use some pretty flexible things. Andrew says, so look for a hardware VPN solution. If you can, yeah, that's the way to go. Once you set it up, it'll be more work to set up and it'll be more money. But once you do it, right? Oh, I spent, $250 on 2 nice pieces of hardware. But now everything just works Now you can't forget to turn it on. There's a bunch of things that makes a lot simpler. And we did this. So there was a similar thing 25 years ago that some vendors like Microsoft made video games and made them detect that you were trying to play online and would block you from playing video games online. You had to be in the same house. Well, we used hardware VPNs to trick the devices into not realizing that we were in different physical locations, and it thought we were all within one house because there was no software on the computer to do anything or whatever, and it just worked. And it was great, so we could play old video games like Age of Empires over the internet when they weren't considered internet-capable games. So that hardware VPN solution is a surprisingly powerful one because it's not detectable within your computer, right? If Zoom was to, like, for some reason try to detect other parts of your computer doing something, it can't detect the VPN. It would have to reach out on your network and do nefarious things on your network to guess at the existence of the VPN. It might be able to, come up with, there seems to be connections in Nicaragua somehow under some circumstances, but depending on how you're configured, even that may be impossible. If you turn off your Wi-Fi, if you only have all traffic go through that VPN, there is a possibility. Oh, TJ did the same thing with Halo 1. There is a possibility that even looking at your computer, there's no way to know where that computer is, as long as it doesn't have, as long as the Bluetooth isn't leaking your location, as long as and I'm not saying that your company's spying on your Bluetooth and your Wi-Fi. I'm saying that under extreme circumstances, these are things that you can block if that's what you really need to do, and you can get awfully reliable from that. And again, as some people have said, if once your company is providing its own hardware and putting software in your computers, all bets are off. Like, they're going to find ways to figure out where you are, and there are some deep tools that do a lot to not quite prove but get pretty reliable about detecting you, but not super effective when you control all the pieces, which is where you are. And a company like you're talking about, that they're going to do that, makes no sense. It also makes no sense that they have that policy, so who knows what they're doing, but just to be realistic, they may have. It is possible that they have those policies for some legacy reason, like, there's some insurance thing that gets better because of this or whatever. Although that makes no sense, right? You get insurance, you get all kinds of advantages if your employees are always out of the country. So I have no idea. As an employer, I can tell you, the one thing I would never, ever logically want, the one thing I could never excuse to my investors is I put intentionally staff in the United States. If I need staff in the United States, then I need them there, right? Like, I need someone to show up in Kansas City and physically stand there with a client. Well, that's different, right? But if there's no reason to need them in the United States, then there's no way to justify it because it's always the most expensive location. It's always the highest insurance location. It carries all the risk, all the complexity, all the cost. Short of putting someone in Switzerland or Monaco or someplace that's just Luxembourg, outrageously expensive. The U.S. really is, especially as an American company, the most expensive possible place to put people. If we were a foreign company putting people in the U.S., that might not be the case. But as an American company, it makes it just so expensive. TJ recommends that you also turn on Chrome's location guard, and he has his setup to be Dallas. And that's, you could, Andrew, do something if you wanted to play a game of kind of manipulating the system, to not manipulating people, but just kind of setting yourself up for looking like you're someplace. You could do a thing where you're like, I'm in New York part of the time. I'm in Texas part of the time. I'm in Nicaragua a little bit of the time, right? Make Nicaragua 2 months of the year, 3 months of the year, right? And then be suddenly in Texas. That could, to some degree, throw people off and be like, he's moving around an awful lot. But make almost all those locations the U.S. and make other places just kind of look like an occasional vacation for a little bit. You know, do it for a week here or there, and be like, "Yep, vacation time." Then it'll make it that much harder to find you in the logs and in the patterns of things, because it'll be like, "Oh, he's always moving around. Like, this is a bunch of work." If you know, make it look like you're seasonal within the United States, a snowbird or something. That'll probably hide things, because at some point it's going to be humans, and at some point AI looking at the patterns of your connection, if they care to the right. Everything is if they care to this level, that they're looking at patterns and trying to say, oh, this pattern is suggestive of someone who is moving to another country. Right? We're getting into absurd levels for the level of what they're what they're saying. I'm almost through my first Pepsi, which, by the way, was awful. I opened it up, and I'm pretty sure they forgot to put the sugar or something in it. Like, it was bland. But it didn't taste like it went bad. It just tasted like it wasn't sweet. So I'm like, well, I need the caffeine. So I'm powering through it regardless. So what's everybody got going on this weekend? This is the big party weekend. If anyone's here in Nicaragua, the day after tomorrow, Saturday, is the 19th, July 19th. That is the equivalent of the 4th of July here. So huge fireworks, lots of parties, lots of things to go do. Every city has a big event. Managua obviously has the big event. Concerts and you know, tailgating and food and beer and rides. You know, all the fair kind of things, they're all out. Like, there's an awful lot to do. It's pretty cool. And we were talking about this on the channel today, or somewhere we were talking about it today. And you know, people are often like, oh, you know, Americans shouldn't go to it. We've always been told Americans shouldn't go to it or whatever. So I started going a number of years ago, and it was like, they were so glad we were there. It was so welcoming and so open and friendly. Like, there was absolutely no reason not to be there. It's so accessible. It's so they're just so glad that we're there. It makes me wonder what the nefarious purpose is of having spread the rumor that Americans shouldn't go. Like, whether it's just this simple, it's confusion, maybe, but it feels an awful like people are out on a mission. Oh, we've been told to tell people they can't go, right? We don't want people to find out how welcome they are, you know? So we have to protect, like, I don't know. It's weird, because when you actually go and you're like, there was no reason for me not to be here. So I'm hoping to make it out. We'll see. I'm so busy with work that on one side I'm just looking for any moment that I can get a chance to buckle down. And like I told people early on in the show, I'm working as we do stuff tonight. I'm getting a lot of work done in the background. Honeybee says, Leo, buenas noches, es cuando está oscuro. Buenas tardes. Well, it's oscuro aquí. Hasta luego, amigos. See you next time. And Leo said buenas noches. That's what triggered it. It is, well, here it's 7 o'clock and it's dark outside. If it seems like it's light outside, that's because I have lights on my curtains. It's actually dark out there. So you can say buenas noches ahorita. That's not a problem. I do have a cup of coffee here, too. I'm tired of all the coffee all day. I've been coffeeed out, but... Oh, someone replied, I think, about the thing. Well, I guess you got to deal with spam from time to time. I'm going to look out for the names. Hello. Paul is here. We're on the live stream. That's me. That's the actual live.
Oh, okay, so you...
It's only delayed like
3 minutes?
Maybe not even. It's a surprisingly short delay tonight, but they can hear you and the dog shaking. So say hello.
Hello.
I am working as I do the live stream tonight. It's just there's no free time. And April is making you take me to the beach on Saturday.
What?
More places to take photos of.
Oh, maybe.
I'm like, I still don't have a car.
licenses soon.
Hopefully. Haven't heard yet.
Have you tracked the package?
I have not. I mean, I gave it to them. I did what I needed to do.
Yeah.
But I've not tracked it to see where it is.
Probably already there.
Oh, let's hope so. That's our driver's licenses that we're talking about. If I do a search, track via UPS. How much you want to bet has not been shipped yet? That's my... No, it's been shipped. Dropped off in Fort Worth. Went to Fort Worth. Went to Deerfield Beach, Florida. Deerfield delivered yesterday. Woo! Pompano Beach, Florida. Is that right? I'm gonna actually talk to Envios and be like, hey, do you got it? All right. TJ says, I'm thinking about taking a trip next month. I might be coming to Leon. Oh, cool. You haven't been out here in several months. I think it's like... Can you hear the dog drinking? Always when I'm on the show. So loud. So loud. Oh, and I lost the thing I was doing. Yeah, TJ, let me know. We'll do something. I might be heading up to I've heard a rumor that I'm going to be going up to Jalapa sometime soon just to hang out and do something, just to do some filming. I need a couple days away. Yeah, November, that sounds right. Or was it October? Was it, TJ, were you there for Halloween? I can't remember. But I might be going up to Jalapa, which would give me a good opportunity to film something completely different and go to a place that I've never been and just get away from everything and have absolutely no way to work in any meaningful way. I mean, I'll have my laptop, of course, but that would be a break that I really need. That would be nice. I have never been anywhere near Jalapa. I've probably been closer on the Honduran side than I have on the Nika side. So it'd be really cool. It'd be and everyone raves about Jalapa. A lot of people on the channel are interested in it, and so I don't know how it got on everyone's radar, but it's I guess people want a place that's really remote but still has enough services to like function, and so it's like that kind of place. Like it's just out there, but not to the point of dangerous or whatever, like wilderness. So I have friends who go up there and perform, but it's just so far away. Could be cool. So I'm really hopeful that gets pulled off. Yeah, TJ says it was our opening. So I think that was our 1 year anniversary, but our reopening kind of thing. Man, am I tired of the chair. But it's good to be back on the show. Hate taking a week off. All right, I've been kind of goofing off doing light work. I need to get into like real work, hardcore work. Let's see, that is here. So I did some research this week, and so I'm kind of behind on the whole AI world. and know nothing of ChatGPT models until recently. Now I'm well versed. So if anyone's doing work with ChatGPT, let me tell you, working with the 4.1 and 4.5 series really changes your experience. Oh, TJ says, what's the name of that place? Desperados. Desperados. You can't really sing that. They will sue you. They are terrible people. Never listen to the music of the Eagles. They're not good people. They hate their music. They hate their listeners. They hate their audience. Just honor their wishes and make them go away. That is my take on the Eagles. But yeah, Desperados, named after the movie, not the song by the Evil Band. And yeah. What was I? Now I'm distracted. Don't know what I was saying. Oh my gosh. I was trying to blow dust off my desk and I blew money off my desk onto the floor. I've started keeping weights because I've been at my desk so much. I think you can see them. Yeah, you can just see it right here. I've got weights behind me. So when I'm waiting for things, I'm like grabbing weights and because I'm actually getting sore from sitting at the desk. I'm like, I got to lift something. So that's how much I've been working, like so many hours, but we are getting cool stuff done. So. I can see myself on video going like I look pretty goofy. But yeah, so if you use ChatGPT and you use the stuff that's available to the public or like the defaults, it's garbage. Like it's really like I don't know how people even start to use that. But if you like, I've been learning about these different models, and it's amazing how different it reacts. Which I mean, it's not surprising given how it all works. I mean, it makes sense. But as someone who's essentially avoided all use of it, like I played around with it just to see what it did early on, and I'm like, yep, that's stupid. The result, everything is worthless. Interesting technology, but what are you going to do with this? But now it's actually getting somewhere and has some purpose. But you have to pick your models and know how it works and stuff. And it's like, that's really interesting that like 4.5 is really good at writing stories or creating prose, and 4.1 can't even carry on a conversation. And it's like, oh, but and 3 has more information than 4, but 4 is more up to date than 3. But 4 mini is faster than you're like, there's a lot of these different balances that you have to pick depending on what you're doing and how much you want to pay and all these different things. So it's kind of interesting, given that it's a whole range of things that I've not cared about before. Yes, TJ says Clint Black had a version of it. I like to think that's the one I'm singing. That's actually the one I know better because I grew up, I was born in the 70s. I remember the 70s, but the 80s and 90s are more of my childhood and what I know. And so Clint Black was very much in the middle of my musical years. So I heard his version of Desperado, already knowing it, of course, right, from the Eagles, but getting it from Clint Black was when I heard it on the radio all the time. So in my head, when I hear Desperado, that is what I hear. Oh, TJ says, what's the name of that place? I was talking about the place you plan on visiting. Jalapa, Halapa. Way up north, just off the Honduran border. Pretty neat area. Looks really cool. We've done on the show some searching to see what there is for hotels and stuff up there. There's actually some really cool hotels. and things. Wow, we actually have very few people on this week, which is not super surprising because we weren't on last week, and it is kind of a holiday week, and I've been super busy. I've been kind of absent on the show as well. Like, I'm not as engaged. I'm not talking to you guys as much. I'm not making extra things like shorts very much and stuff like that. So I totally get it. I just noticed on my monitor, this monitor, not that one, that I got up and went somewhere for just a minute. How long ago was that? I don't remember getting up from the chair. That's weird. I just watched myself get up like I'm some kind of ghost because like that's my real monitor and I'm only maybe a minute or said. Oh no, it's already me talking. Like there I am. 15 seconds maybe, 20 seconds behind all. Weird. Hold on, I just gotta write something too. I have to go tell ChatGPT something. My dad says, calling it a night. Take care. Luke says, Jalapa is a tobacco region along with Condega. They are blended with Esteli tobaccos for premium cigars. Good to know. Douglas Solomon, the Raspberry Pi 4 search. You got up. Oh, when I went searching for the Raspberry Pi. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I did not remember that at all. That's why I got up really fast. And yeah, here it is. You know, my favorite thing about the Raspberry Pi is the size of it. When you put I hate when you put a case on it, it becomes like this bulky plasticky thing, and I hate it. But what I like to do is get the integrated heatsink case where it's just a big chunk of metal that goes onto the top and bottom. And so the whole thing's just like a big solid heatsink. I've got one somewhere that's anodized black, and you can hold it. It's like the perfect thing to hold in your hand, and it looks cool. And it's a little bit exposed as far as the parts, but it's like, oh, that's what I like that. Like, it's just neat. I don't know. Tony's here. He says, I assume you avoid politics on the channel. I really don't. I actually talk, I talk more politics probably than any other channel in all of Nicaragua. Like, I don't make a point of getting away at all. Could you give a sense of what Nicaragua think about the current U.S. administration, admin? That's a funny way to put it because in most countries, an admin is a role within the government. Like in Belize, there's a CEO, so it's like the government secretary. Oh, the administration. So I mean, I think in general, Nicaragua doesn't care a whole lot. I don't have like an inside track on Nicaragua's government's opinion of people, right? Obviously, but the feeling you get and what I would hypothesize, right? Something that you have to understand, and I talked about this on the channel. I have videos about this, so this is not me going off the cuff live and talking about something I would never talk about on the regular channel. So first of all, we're allowed to talk politics, right? There's no not talking politics. That is completely American propaganda that says that. Nicaragua has a very specific law, as most countries do, that says we're not allowed to attempt to influence politics. That is a very different thing than explaining the politics of a country. So that's not a problem at all. My opinion, my guess, I guess, about Nicaragua's opinion of the current U.S. administration is that the last administration, the Biden administration, was very anti-Central America and made a huge point of it. They made a show. They came down and did a march through Central America, putting on these big talks about how much they hated Central America and didn't want to support it. They really, spent money to off-put Central America. It was very strange. I found they didn't come to Nicaragua because we're kind of small in the region from a population perspective. They were up in Guatemala trying to burn whatever bridges they could for whatever reason. Really odd, but they did. And it's associated with the immigration and all those things, right? Like we don't want you up here, but it was very much we're not partners with the region, is how it is the message that they sent. And so I think in this region, it's easy as Americans to view the current administration as being so outspoken, dramatic, in the news, flamboyant, however you want to look at it, that they must be upsetting people other places dramatically. And if you were to go to some place that we're bombing, Iran, right, and ask what do people think of the administration, they're going to have really strong opinions about it, right? Like, it may be in multiple directions, but they're going to have strong opinions. There's a lot going on and a lot of interaction between the current American administration and those countries. Here in Nicaragua, believe it or not, America would have you believe that things have changed a lot on both sides of the fence, right? Whether you're on the Republican side and it's like, we've done a lot, and the Democrats are like, they've done a lot. The reality is nothing's been done. We don't notice any changes here. So I think that the government here very likely is concerned about the capriciousness, the unpredictability, the risks of the administration. They just don't know what to expect, and so they're on edge probably to some degree. But I don't think that they necessarily have a super strong opinion, because I don't think that the current administration has honestly, I don't think they know where Nicaragua is. If you were to give them a map, well, I'm pretty confident if you gave the current administration a map, they couldn't find the United States on it. They'd probably confuse it with Russia. But assuming that they knew enough to know where the United States was and maybe where Central America was in the most general sense, I don't think they would find Nicaragua on a map or confuse it with a nearby country. I think they would, like most people, confuse it with Nigeria. And so I don't think the current administration has strong opinions on Nicaragua. I don't think that they're aware of Nicaragua. I don't think that fits in the little brain space. And so I think that Nicaragua, for the most part, is cautiously optimistic that out of sight, out of mind, Nicaragua really benefits when the United States isn't thinking about them. And that's, if there's one thing the United States is not doing, it's thinking. Now, there is... Rubio, Secretary of State, does have a personal vendetta against any nation that treats its people well, and Nicaragua treats its people really well. So he really dislikes them. But, whether his personal vendettas are realistically going to get to play out on a global stage or not, so far, no. He's small potatoes. And is he going to remain in position? It's a volatile government internally and externally. So I think that Nicaragua is like, right now, right? As far as the U.S. And they're hopeful that they end up on the good side of things, right? This could end up being beneficial to Nicaragua. Absolutely could end up being beneficial to Nicaragua versus the previous administration. There are some administrations that are much nicer to Nicaragua, but most treat them pretty badly. And so, the current administration can be rather antagonistic and end up just being status quo. And so often I think that's what Americans miss, that Nicaragua is treated badly by the U.S. all the time, just like the tariff thing. People are like, oh, the tariffs on Nicaragua don't start until August 1st. Wait till then. And we're like, you do realize that there's always tariffs. There's always an embargo. Like, that's every day, all day, every year for decades. So... yeah, there's a small change maybe coming. Is it going to affect anyone? Is any Nicaraguan aware of that? No. Does any Nicaraguan care? No. Does it change the price of anything here? No. Does it affect any business here? No. Yeah, on some spiritual level, it feels like we're taking a hit. But in reality, the only people who should be and are upset with the American administration is Americans. And they should be. They're getting mistreated. They're losing their jobs. The quality of life is going down. All those things are real. So Americans should take issue with that. But as far as Nicaraguans are concerned, it's just Americans mistreating Americans. Like, they can do what they want, I think. That is, the amount that America is not in the news here, that nobody cares, is pretty significant. And that's the interesting thing, right? The U.S. has done so many stupid things, so many dramatic things on the world stage that I feel like everyone's just kind of burned out. And they're like, you know what? It doesn't affect us. Who cares? Luke says, worst case scenario with current U.S. policies, we may have to fly through El Salvador to visit family. And that's if they cut off routes to Nicaragua, which is not expected, right? Those things hurt Americans and American businesses, which, lots of things hurt Americans and American businesses, and those things are still happening. So it's not out of the question. This coffee does not taste good today. It's quite cold. It's from this morning. But it does not hold up to being cold. It's like gritty, too. I'm hoping those pupusas are coming sometime soon. I gotta double check what's going on. Make sure my kids are really getting fed before everything closes. Luke says, any info... Oh, wait. Tony says, thanks for the response. You're welcome. Luke says, any info on issues with Spirit Airlines? They canceled my trip in October with refund. Oh. The thing about Spirit is, even when big things are happening, they don't put out information. That's one definite negative about them. Every time I have to deal with them, it's like, so I heard this, so I heard that, but we don't get any information. So, and you go to their website and stuff, nothing. So they're not big on, communicating about their plans. And I understand to some degree airlines aren't good about that in general. They make announcements when it's positive. They avoid things under other circumstances. I always said, no matter what, I have to deal with dinner for everyone while doing the show. It's just never going to stop. Now I have to adjust my car rental. Oh, yeah. Yeah, at least it's October and you have some amount of time. I think my wife is flying up in September, but maybe she's not on Spirit, but I thought she was. But they come and go. They have their own schedule. Janet's here. Hey, they're kind of late getting here, classes, and now I have to run to the supermarket. At least the supermarket's close, but you have an hour and 15 minutes. You better go. Oh, yeah, we have to have all the groceries because everything closes this weekend. That's a big one. I always forget the holiday weekends, and it's like, everything's closed for 2 days. Restaurants are closed. Delivery is closed. And, oh, no, we didn't stock up on food. That's always bad. I'm going to check how many people are on the show. Not very many. At least with Turo, a week's car rental, only $440. Not bad. I rented a Turo one time. I can't remember what happened. Something kind of dramatic happened with it, but I can't remember. It wasn't an accident or anything. Maybe it had some, I don't know. Maybe it was just how they picked us up or dropped it off or something was really weird and it just stuck in my memory, but I don't remember what it was. Something. But I know we rented one once in Texas. I feel like it was a good experience. I don't rent cars very often, so I used to back in the day. Someone just said the dollar is 10% down. That's depressing. Although, what that means is always difficult. What does the dollar down mean to anybody? Because it has to be against something. So it could be the other thing gaining, right? Luke says, I drove a 10-year-old Lincoln MKZ hybrid for 17 days, $960. That's a nice car. Not bad at all. Against the euro, the dollar is definitely falling a bit. Not a good time to go to Europe. Well, I mean, we've been in kind of a good position against Europe recently, so it's not the end of the world. But I'm forgetting what I'm working on. Nobody answers me on WhatsApp. It'd be really handy if people would read their messages. I'm sure we're going to call it a short night tonight, not to discourage people, but we have only so many people on, and it is pretty quiet, and I am tired and have a lot of work and do have to feed the kids, so I don't want to, definitely not going to push it and make it a long night. This is really early, but this month, my gosh. That was my dog hitting the camera and the light. Because she's a lazy dog. And she sleeps in the funniest of places. I hear doors. That's encouraging. But no one got online, so that's not encouraging. All right. Jan says, all of what you said, I'm tired too, lol. But I'll leave this on while I can. I appreciate it. Something broke. Yeah, that's easy. I fear everyone's asleep and we're not going to be able to order food. You guys are awfully quiet. It feels like it's much later than it actually is. It's not even 8 o'clock here yet. But it... feel like everyone has disappeared. Everyone is gone. I have no topic to talk about when you guys are not on. I barely have topics to talk about when I'm doing the show. It's been rough, let me tell you. Trying to come up with stuff. Just when I'm so busy and so rushed. Let me see, what do we like? Well, we got one extra person. Phil is here. Hey, Scott. Thanks for all your videos. I will be traveling down there this weekend. Oh, awesome. Douglas says, Ex Libre. What is Ex Libre? What is that in reference to? Luke says, I may very well sleep in this new recliner that I bought. I'm old and retired, very deserving of my first recliner to fall asleep so the TV can watch me. Oh, Douglas, are you talking about the Xorg server? That's the only Ex Libre that I'm familiar with. Doris is here. She says, Buenas. Douglas says, versus Wayland. Oh, yeah. I use Ex Libre only because remote access works better on it when I'm doing that. Mostly my machines don't have anything on them. So I use Wayland sometimes. I'm very all over the place. I wish I had a recliner to fall asleep in, although I can't. I can't breathe if I fall asleep in a recliner, so it's not good for me. But I do miss having a good recliner. I have nothing like that now. I guess I kind of do. We just brought back one of our pieces of furniture that does recline. I should put that somewhere and recline, actually, now that I think about it. Where could I fit that? I could put it in my office, actually. The dog might like that. She has a big dog bed in here. Don't you, sweet girl? But if I put blankets on the couch, then she would like that. It could be up against the wall, which I rarely use, and I could recline in it sometimes. Ooh. Ooh. Wonder if it fits through my door. I bet it does. That's an idea. But I also need it in the game room. It might work out well in there. I have some ideas. We've been wanting to get a couch for the game room. None of these things are the couch that we want. None of them are big enough, because what my daughters want is a big enough couch that all three of us can sit on. Currently, we always have a chair and two of us on the couch, and then a table, and it's kind of weird. We'd like to make it like a big, comfy room that all of us can hang out on the couch and have the dogs with us. And the style couch we have just does not lend itself. Like, it's got really wide arms, which is cool because like we barely have room on the couch, but each arm can have a dog on it. It's like a big dog bed in the sky, and so they're happy with that. It works out really well. So that's not all bad, but for us sitting on it, it's not the best. Ah, there we go. Another thing fixed. Tony says, how old are your kids? 14 and 16. We first started traveling in 2012, so 13 years ago. So they were 1 and 4 when we started. Is that right? 1 and 3? That's probably right. They were very, very little. Oh, Luke says, La Curacao has a 3-seater. Both end seats recline with center, has lights, power, and cup holders, $750 plus $13.50 for delivery. I don't like that style. I do, but I don't like it for what we need. That's the one that I have is kind of like that. It's not that wide, and we've had those in the past, and we enjoy them, but we're looking for something that's a lot more like a big, comfy couch to get stuck in when watching movies and stuff. Douglas says 2 chairs. Yeah, we could get 3 recliners and just kind of move them around and do things that way, but we like having one big thing. So when we're in Texas, their cousins have this giant corner couch. They also have a bigger room and a big TV. And it's great because you really get in on the couch and you can put blankets on it and all the dogs jump up with you. And it's just kind of like, it's almost like a big bed thing. And everybody just kind of snuggles. Tony says, had a young woman with you in one of your videos exploring a town with you in once, but she didn't speak. Was that your oldest? Not likely. So a young woman with you in one of your... Can you tell me where I was, Tony, or what she looked like, or... give me something and how long ago it was, anything like that. And I can probably tell you who it is. There's a good chance. So unless you're thinking of Marcella, who is definitely not one of my kids at 37, her kids are about the same age as my kids. And once in a while, her daughter is with me in some of the shows and definitely doesn't speak, and she's 14. So she would be the same age as my youngest, roughly. But yeah, Douglas has said probably Camille. That's what I'm thinking. A lot of people mistake Camille for my daughter. She is Quebecois, and is 23 now. So a bit older than my kids, but she's definitely at an age where she could be my kid. She does a number of videos with me, and some of the really popular ones. So that's the most likely person that you would see on there. Luke says, pick something, leave it in the shopping basket, review several times without buying, and you'll get 10% off discount. Oh, very nice. Good to know. I thought you were going to say leave it in there and you'll accidentally buy it and it'll just show up, because that's kind of what you did. But that works too. I need to get Camille back on the show. She wants to come back. She tried to get me to go hang out in the Balkans with her, but I just ended up being busy. And she is currently in Thailand or Cambodia. Dora says, hey, Scott, I know you spoke about this before, but would you know what I need to bring my Havanese, is that how you pronounce that? Is that Havanese? Dog, 4 years old, under 20 pounds. I may bring 2 pups as well. So most of your requirements are going to be flight requirements. So you're going to have to look at how you're going to fly down, what airlines you're going to use. If you're flying private or you're driving down, certain things get easy and then other things get hard, like the drive. So it all depends on kind of what you're doing with that. But from a Nicaraguan perspective, really all you need is like your normal shots, like distemper, rabies, those things. Nothing weird, nothing unusual, and you need a checkout from the U.S. Assuming you're coming from the United States, you need a checkout from the USDA, the federal agency, not a state agency, not a vet clinic. I mean, a vet clinic will do it, but a vet clinic has to do it on behalf of the USDA, the federal agency. If you're coming from another country, it's got to be their federal agency that does it, the national one. And it's just their, national certificate of health or whatever. So it's a pretty basic thing. Oh, from Canada. So the same thing. You're going to just need the Canadian, I don't know what agency that is, but your equivalent national health certificate. So check with your vet and just ask them for national travel papers. It's like a thing that guarantees that they have all the standard shots and all that stuff. And then it's really easy dealing with on the Nicaragua side. You just hand them all the paperwork. And the more papers you give them, the better, right? Nicaraguans love paperwork. So just layer it on and they'll just be happy as a clam. Like, ooh, things to fill out, things to file, things to copy. That's how they roll. So yeah. Now we got some more people on. We're not doing as badly. You guys have got some questions going on. It's good stuff. Good stuff. And I mentioned this earlier, but for those of you who just joined more recently, I am working in the background. I have so much going on this week that I really can't stop working just because I'm doing the show, but I'm doing a lot less and getting things done while we do. So it's good. All's good. Oh, I got a little bit jerky there. We got a little bit of bandwidth issues for a second. Yeah. So hopefully we're getting pupusas here, but no one has verified that they're actually getting them. I checked a couple times, but it's hard to get it in writing that we're really confident. that they're coming. Hopefully there's at least cheese and bread and I can go. So Phil says, is it normal to pay $120 for a ride to the resort from the airport? What is the resort, Phil? I have no idea what the resort would be. There's a couple, I mean, there's more than one resort in the country, and they are all different places. And there are definitely ones where 120 would be reasonable. So with no more information, the answer is a solid maybe. Luke says, tonight's low attendance could be due to Miss Universe Nicaragua pageant airing. Okay. Alan says, to the resort. To what resort? Or is the question if we resort to a taxi rather than a taxi to a resort? Grand Pacifica. Oh, Grand Pacifica is not a resort. There is no way to qualify that as a resort. 120 is far too much for a private shuttle to someplace so close, but it doesn't have good roads, so places are going to charge a little bit more. Grand Pacifica is kind of the opposite of a resort, I think. It's just wilderness living. That is, no one goes to Grand Pacific. That's just kind of little spit of land hanging out there. So it's about $80 for a private car from the airport to Leon. The nearest resort is south of Grand Pacifica a bit. I would say about 90 to 100 to go to that. Grand Pacifica, I feel like, should be like 70, but it's remote, so any driver is going to have to come from somewhere. But if they're coming from Managua, then, or if you could find someone at Grand Pacifica, but I don't know if there's taxis in Grand Pacifica. I have no idea how you get transport from there. But Grand Pacifica is quite a bit closer to the airport than Leon is, so that you shouldn't be doing more. Yeah, Alan says 120. Oh, Alan says $70. Well, Alan, is that to Managua or to the airport? It's specifically the airport, so it's a little bit farther. If I was just going to Managua, it'd be less than 82. Less than 82. Also less than 80. 120 for that trip sounds expensive, but I'm not familiar with that area. Alan, Grand Pacifica is part of the northern Managua zone, so they're not leaving Managua. They're not coming into Leon, I don't think. I'm going to check that on a map. I don't believe Grand Pacifica is in Leon. If it is, it's way out there. But it's right on the border. Between one way or another, it's on the border between Leon and Managua. So it's a lot closer than Leon, the city. It's definitely Managua. It's basically, if you go straight from Managua to the water, it is the closest point on the water to Managua, but it's not in a desirable area. It's in the remote area. So... it doesn't have like good roads going to it the way that like Masachapa does and Pochimil and the Managua beaches, the ones that people want to be at. So it's you've got to take Nicaragua 280, the dirt road. I've always been told it's a dirt road. Maybe it's paved now, but it's small road for sure, and with very little population. What an odd place to want to go. Phil, what makes you want to go to Grand Pacifica of all places? That's like, is it not a good area to go to? Well, I mean, it depends what you're looking for. If you are getting a bargain deal on a remote place, and you want to be away from everyone with a small group of expats, it can be fine. I've not been there. I know people who've been there are generally unbelievably unhappy with it, but it's because they're sold on it being like a resort or something, right? Which obviously it's the farthest thing from. So if you're going there thinking it's like a resort, that seems like... So Grand Pacifica is I I don't know how to put this. I don't want to say it's a failed project, but it's a remote place built for expats who want nothing to do with Nicaragua and only want to be around other expats, but don't really want to be around many of them either. So it's a tiny little community just for expats in a really remote area. But it's on the water, right? So, I mean, it's beautiful water, and it's in Nicaragua, so you've got Nicaragua laws and stuff. But other than I just don't want to be around, it's a weird combination, but there's totally people who want this. So it just, for me, it comes across as odd. I want to be away from everyone and I want nothing whatsoever. It's for people who hate Nicaragua and yet want to be in Nicaragua, but want to be in a really remote yet enclave. But the thing is that the property values there are so low because it's completely undesirable. It's like the poster child of undesirable Nicaragua, because it doesn't have any of the benefits of Nicaragua and none of the benefits of like the things that we say. Like, we make fun of San Juan del Sur because it's not Nicaragua, but San Juan del Sur has its own charm and benefits. So one of the things that makes it not like Nicaragua is that it's a little bit more expensive, but Grand Pacifica is completely economically failed. So even in Nicaragua, where property values are really low, Grand Pacifica makes the rest of Nicaragua look really, really real estate successful. The things we hear is that every single place is a fire sale in Grand Pacifica. Everybody wants out. There's nobody there who wants to be there. But when you go there, of course, everyone has to pretend they want to be there because they have to try to sell their place. So that the whole thing becomes just a bunch of people trying to sell their place, is what we're told, right? Any familiarity? They are excited they may get a fiber cable soon. The thing is that, so Grand Pacifica, there's fiber cable up to the doors. They don't have fiber because they've intentionally blocked it, right? So the only reason they might get fiber soon is because the people who own it, because remember, you don't own in there, you're renting from someone who owns the community. They don't want the expats there having good internet, so they don't let them. But the Nicaraguans who live just outside the gates have had fiber for forever, 5-10 years. So just be aware that any excitement they have is artificial, right? It's like, I'm so excited, I might go to McDonald's soon. Why didn't you go to McDonald's before? I just didn't leave the house. Okay, I mean, you can be excited about that, but it's your own decision. Itchethek says, I took a taxi from the airport to Leon today for $80. I was going to brave the interlocales, but my phone wasn't working and I was behind schedule. I have to put on big boy pants another time. Itchethek, are you in Leon right now? Like, where are you? We should hang out tomorrow. Tony says, how conscious would you say average Nikas are of the Somoza era? Oh my gosh, like, are you aware of Trump? The Contras, the U.S. backing them, Civil War, Revolution, etc. Like, it... it's hard to imagine anything more aware. Like, that would be like asking Americans if they're aware of the Revolution and the Civil War 150 years ago, right, when they had just happened. Like, imagine how much Americans know them now. Imagine how much when they were fresh. That's what it's like. Phil says, oh my goodness, I had no idea that this is the public perception of this place. Oh, yeah, that's its thing. It's like an ECI property, right? Like, isn't that like their thing? Luke says, enclave living, even self-loathing folks need a home. Exactly, right? Like, there's like, but enclave living is different. This is like enclave living without the enclave. Like, it's like an empty enclave is the impression I've always gotten. People who've been there are like, yeah, there's like just the whole thing's empty and half finished, and everyone's already abandoned it. So it's all people trying to get out. So it's always I would say Grand Pacifica, and again, I've not gone there, but for having not gone there, it is the place, and I've talked extensively to people who have lived there, right? Okay, cool. asking a quick question. It is the number one place of why would anyone go there. It's the most the most misunderstood or the least understood location, because like there's cheap Nicaragua, there's authentic Nicaragua, there's city Nicaragua like Managua, like it's got its own thing. There's the resort Nicaragua, right? There are actual resorts. Those we don't tend to understand very well either, but they have like a thing. Like there's like, okay, you want an all-inclusive? Why would you come to Nicaragua? Right? Like why wouldn't you go to Mexico? Like they own that space. It's fine to do here, right? But it's just like, why would you pick here? Maybe it's cheaper here. All right. But the so like San Juan del Sur, like we make fun of it, it's enclavey, all kinds of things, but like it's got its own vibe. I don't get that vibe, but I spent time there and I almost moved there. So and so did Alan, right? And neither of us like it now. We're like, why? I can't believe we almost moved there. But the reality is there's a lot of reasons why San Juan del Sur is better than everywhere else we would go in Central America. It's just not better than the rest of Nicaragua. So, okay, cool. That makes sense. Right. And some people, we've got like my co-moderator on the group, Tom, he lives in San Juan del Sur, and I know a number of people who do, and there's some people who just like it. And some of them are like, I totally get all the negatives, but I just love the quiet bay, or I love the specific variety of food, or I like the enclavey style construction living and I ignore the enclavey bit. And some people just like enclaves, right? Some people want to be around English speakers all the time, and it gives them that, and that's the factor that drives them for it. So a lot of those places, basically everywhere in Nicaragua makes a lot of sense to me. Grand Pacifica falls into it's not an investment. It's not cheap to live there because you're far from like grocery stores, you're far from resources, you're far from restaurants. So I think maybe it has a golf course or something, but if I look at pictures, I don't know where the golf course would be, but maybe there is one. Oh, I guess I see something that kind of looks like a golf course. Maybe there's one. I guess that could do a thing. But like, I'm just not sure what would drive me there as opposed to other things. Ishithik says, yep, right now staying at Airbnb near Iglesia Laborele. Iglesia? Oh, Laboria. Laborio. I assume I spelled that correctly. You did not. Laborio, the barrio of the laborers. So you're at Leyendas? That's the only... Oh, an Airbnb near there. Never mind. But probably near Leyendas. And then Mark said, would it be a bad idea wearing a Trump t-shirt there? Lol. Hello all. Honestly, it wouldn't be a huge deal. Nicaraguans do that all the time. So there's actually so don't do that, please. Right? And don't wear a Biden one either. Like, I'm not saying it's Trump as don't wear American politic things here. Don't wear American flags here. But if you did, there is a cultural thing that people don't pay attention to what's on shirts here, because everyone wears secondhand clothing, and so there's a like what's on a like I'll see people going by in like t-shirts from my wife's high school, right? And she went to a small high school. You'll be like, oh my gosh, or like the things in her hometown or my hometown. And it's like, oh my gosh, they're wearing something from my hometown. But obviously they're not, they don't know what it is. And sometimes they wear things that are embarrassing or weird or just goofy or Christmas stuff all year round. No one's reading it. It's just comfy clothing in colors or styles that they like. And because everyone does it and everyone accepts that that's how it works, it's like, it's as if t-shirts don't actually have something on them. So if it's the only thing you have and you're not like making a big point of it, no one will probably even notice. Americans will be like, hey, you know what you're wearing. But other people will just be like unaware, blissfully unaware. Yeah, Alan says I've seen plenty of American flags on shirts here, but yeah, don't flaunt it. It's not a thing to do. And I know Mark was joking, right? But for those who are watching and wondering, yeah, don't flaunt it. But it actually isn't the big deal that you would imagine that it is. Simply because it is what it is. All right, I did find out my dinner is on the way. Woot woot. And apparently groceries too, because we were out of food in this house. Out of food. It was kind of bad. We've been struggling the last few days. Although my daughter and I did make homemade hummus the other night. We made a double batch of it. So we had all kinds of hummus, which has been great. I don't know what that is. Alan says, just be a decent human. Understand you're a guest here. Yep. If it's the clothes you have, it's the clothes you have. And, you know, this is the one spot, though, that, you know, I was talking to April recently, and she's like, oh, you know, all the Americans want to be Canadians. Everywhere you go in the world, Americans pretend to be Canadians. I'm like, yeah, except for Nicaragua, where the Canadians pretend to be Americans. Here, it's the opposite. It's the one spot that it's flipped. So we'll be interested, Phil, when you come down as to what you think of Grand Pacifica, because, but the one really important thing to be aware of is everyone is trying to sell. So just be aware that everyone's going to be selling to you at all times. And the prices really are, we're hearing that nobody is able to sell at 40,000. So just to give yourself numbers. So when you're talking to people and people are like, you're like, oh, you got to pay me 200,000 for the house. No, none of those are real prices. Gypsy's here. Hola, Scott. Speaking of food, are there cheap almuerzos in Leon? If so, how much does one cost on average? I mean, yeah, obviously there's cheap. So Leon's the cheapest city in the country. Luke says, I'm Chad, a Canadian yoga instructor. So many Canadian yoga instructors. That is like the huge thing here. Lunch is probably, if you're going to like almuerzo places, which we don't normally call them, they're just they have all kinds of names, but you're probably looking at like $3 for those kinds of places. You know, I don't tend to eat at them because they're almost always meat, so it's very hard for me to eat at them. But if you're looking at really cheap food, $3-4, prices have gone up, so it's not like it used to be. But those little lunch places for Nikas is cheap. When I used to go get breakfast, I would sometimes get breakfast for $1 if I was getting like the street places. Now, if you're going to the restaurants, sit-down restaurants, obviously they cost more. And street burgers and stuff, they've come up in price. It's not like it used to be. I feel like it was like $2 when Cat got food. Like inflation has hit, but it's the street food is very cheap. We're not Southeast Asia cheap. They remain cheaper for food, especially. But it's good, and the food is good. You get a lot of rice, you get a lot of beans, you get a lot of meat. There's a lot of chicken. Here in Colombia, it is $2.25 to $3.50 US. Yeah, that's probably a little bit cheaper than here, I would say, especially if you're not in Leon, right? Luke may have current prices that he sees up in Matagalpa. We're talking about like the really cheap lunch places, right? Could you really scrounge around and get down to $3? I think so, but $2.25? I have a hard time imagining doing that here. That would be under 100 cord. 100 cord you could imagine. Some place being absolutely super cheap and coming in at 100, and that would be like $2.90. But far more likely is coming in at 150 cord, which is like $4. So we generally see Colombia as a little bit cheaper than here on average. Maybe not Bogota, but I just returned from Vietnam. The food was cheap but boring after a while. Southeast Asia, generally the old French Indochina region, the food is crazy cheap. Like there's just no competing with it. Now, variety in Vietnam, but if you got bored in Vietnam, Gypsy, Nicaragua's going to be tough. We do get boring. That is, I wish that wasn't the case. I wish I could be like, we have all this great variety. We don't. So it is affordable, but it does get, oh, here we go. My beef nachos tonight was, wait, oh, the nachos was $160 and 2 beef tacos $480, and then Jamaica was $425, or is that $25? That's a typo. He means 25. Okay, and there's no way that was a $10 Jamaica. So that's okay. So first of all, that's dinner, and not going for someplace cheap, not someplace expensive, but that's quite a bit more. So that's $240. So what's that? That's like $7-8. But for dinner and nachos plus 2 tacos, that's a little bit. We do order pupusas. It's tough. All my prices are like delivery prices, because I rarely get out. I had to visit Florida. Oh yeah. I'm going to look up some delivery prices, right? So it's going to be way much. What paradas and holidays do they have there in the months December to February? Oh, I'm bad at the dates. So all the Christmas stuff, obviously, there are so many things going on in different neighborhoods. Like, you're safe. Just there's always going to be something. I feel like there isn't as much as there used to be, but there's a lot. Oh, here we go. 4 pupusas for $200. That's a lot. Right now, I mean, if I'm feeling really hungry, I could start to polish that off. But that's a meal for 2. Or if you're my daughter, that's a meal for 4, right? And so that's about $5.40. So you could do dinner for $2.70 there. How much does eating at a fritanga cost? So those it's been a little while since I ate at one. And again, I don't eat meat, so it's more of when Marcella does it, it's more meaningful. I feel like she gets dinner for like $4 to $5. When it's just her, less, but if she's getting it for other people, I think she spends about $4 to $5 for a meal. But that's, chicken and a number of things, which if I go eat at a fritanga, I normally get away for about $3. But obviously you don't want to eat what I'm eating in that case. Fritangas are not meant for me, right? But pupusa places, I will generally have dinner for about $3. And that's worth noting that is an adequate dinner for $2.75 delivered. Right? So like we're getting pupusas right now. I guarantee I'm getting quite a bit more food for cheaper because we just picked it up down in Guadalupe. Phil says, thanks for the info on Grand Pacifica. I definitely don't hate Nicaragua and wouldn't want to be grouped in with the people like that. A little late now, but I will be using that place as a pivot point. So the problem with Grand Pacifica as a pivot point is that you are disconnected from the world. So hopefully you're able to make it work, and hopefully you like it and have a great time. How long are you here, by the way, Phil? Just be aware that the thing about Grand Pacifica is that you're at a long, long dirt road, and you're out there, so you don't have easy access to any of the cities, any of the communities. So you'll have a very different feel of Nicaragua coming from there. Like all the things that we do, like easily going to different beaches, going into the city, going out for nightlife, going to lots of different restaurants, hopping between the cities, taking the interlocales to get quickly between places, driving ourselves easily between places. All of those things won't be available to you in Grand Pacifica, so you are completely isolated. It's designed for you to never leave. Obviously, you can leave, right? But you're in a gated community at the end of everything, far away. So you don't have any side way. There's just nowhere to go, basically. So 1 week. So it'll be cool. Like, you'll be able to experience the weather. You'll be able to experience the waterfront. But that might be it. But it'll give you that first little bit. Just be aware that nothing you experience, the prices of things, the type of food, the access to things, the way things work, none of it will be like Nicaragua. So it's just not super useful. It won't be indicative of what Nicaragua is like in most ways, other than the weather. Welcome to the Hotel Grand Pacific. Luke says, by the way, in Matagalpa this week, and I confirmed with Brooklyn Cafe is open throughout the weekend, so I can get my desayuno with cafe. Very good. Mark says, looking to escape the winter here in Ohio. We're going into summer. You got a while until you got to escape the winter. Well, it's Ohio. It goes a long time. I have not had dinner. I don't even know if I had lunch. I must have had lunch. But I can't think of what it was. By the way, I should mention, we found good recipes for homemade veggie burgers, because you can't just go to the store and buy veggie burgers here, right? I mean, there's some way to do it, but it's super expensive and very hard to do. Veggie burgers we used to have at one of our restaurants had good ones, and then they disappeared, and we were really disappointed. And yes, you can have things disappear from your own restaurant here. Like, supply of things is hard. We were making them ourselves, but like the person who knew how to make them like stopped, and like people forget, like the concept of repetitive food doesn't exist here. So when you're like, hey, I like this thing you made last week, let's have that again, they'll be like, nope, different now. And so our own chef went from this is amazing to this is disgusting with the same food. And it's like, oh my gosh, I can't. The only place that's reliable with that, there's one place that does veggie burgers in town, and they are reliably throw the food out bad. So we've not had veggie burgers in town for a long time, and we finally found something that my cook is able to make, and partially that's our own fault, right? Like, we didn't have this as a focus. Now I'm like, okay, we're going to start doing this. And we found one, and we lucked out. She's able to make it, and they work. They're like solid. They work really well. They're easy for her to make. They take all day, but it's mostly because we're soaking lentils and stuff. Like, it's not working all day. It just takes all day. And so she is able to make them, and then I'm able to throw them in the fridge. And they're fresh. I'm going to eat, like, she only makes like maybe 7-8 patties, and I eat them, and both of my daughters like them. My wife likes them. And one of my daughters eats one at a no. Both of my daughters eat 2 at a time. My wife eats 1 at a time. So me and Liesel and Luciana. So Liesel, Luciana, and I, that's proper English. And then my wife. We will eat a full meal for us all is 7 of them. So if I make them where we're having them for dinner, we'll go through basically one order in a night. And it's my wife likes hers on a hamburger bun, and Luciana and I like ours on hamburger buns, and Lisa likes hers on lettuce wraps. So she does like lettuce burgers, and she really likes that. So that works out pretty well. But I can also have her make them, and I can put them in the fridge, and they're good for like 3-4 days, like perfectly good. So I'm able to just throw them in an air fryer, make sure they're warm, don't have to do anything because they're already cooked, to just get them warm in the air fryer and put them on a burger. And I just cut up lettuce, tomato, onion, either pickles or relish normally, ketchup, mayo, some salt, pepper, and I toast the hamburger buns. So good. Right? It's not quite a restaurant burger. No, honestly, it would, if we did that as a restaurant, we'd be the best, by far, the best veggie burger in town on this one. So let me tell you, I'm so excited because I'm a burger person. If burgers are one of those things, I want a variety of veggie burgers, and I want them 2, 3, like burgers, pizza, subs. These are things I would eat all the time. Fried shrimp, fish fries. There's a few things. I'm not saying they're all healthy and I should do that, but yeah. Gypsy says, so are there various veggie restaurants in Leon? There is a veggie restaurant in Leon. Coco Kalala is a really good veggie restaurant here, but veggie restaurants here, very tough. Very little variety, very few options. A lot of places have like 1 or 2 things that are vegetarian friendly, but very few places are like veggie restaurants. Luke says, I'd argue with our local restaurant, Gato Blanco, a single thin strip of zucchini, a leaf of lettuce, and half a slice of tomato on an oversized hamburger bun does not constitute a veggie burger. No? What the heck? Yeah. So I'm not a big fan of black bean burgers. Those obviously are easy to make, or easy to find recipes and easy to find the ingredients for here. I tend to like lentil burgers and a few other things. We need to find beets. Beets are good in a burger. We're going to try some walnut burgers, and we got the walnuts, but we found a non-walnut lentil burger that's so good. And obviously so much cheaper than with walnuts and probably healthier. I'm so happy with it. Like, Luke says, put your cook to work on a quinoa and black bean veggie mix to fry. Oh, that's a good one. I forgot about doing a quinoa one. Yeah, absolutely. My goal is to come up with 4 or 5 very different veggie patties like that, so that we get a variety of protein sources while having things that we eat in that way. And then also I need a variety of buns. And there's the regular bimbo, the whatever it is, the fancy artisanal bimbo, the new potato bimbo, and then there's the local ones. Couscous cheeseburger, maybe. My daughter Luciana and I, the ones that cook, she and I did falafel burgers just recently with tzatziki sauce, and I have to say, no. I love falafel. I want falafel in a shawarma form, like I want pita and like all that. But when you do it as a burger, it's way too much, and it's just an overwhelming amount of falafel, so that doesn't work. But we do. But we can make falafel. We do our own hummus, which we really like, and so we're getting some of those things down. I need to teach my cook to make more things, but we're working on it. We're mastering one, then we move on to another. You can't move too fast, but you can make a lot of things. She makes an amazing meatloaf now, which I do as a sandwich, and vegetarian, obviously. Absolutely fantastic. What else does she do that's really good? I've got her doing tuna wraps that are really good. And I get her to like overload them with veggies. So there's a little bit of tuna salad and a ton of lettuce and tomatoes, which I would prefer it with more tuna, but it's really healthy the way. So it's really filling because I'm like eating half a load of lettuce in the wrap. The burger joint in Terminal 1 at FLL had 3 different veggie burgers. Oh, mediocre. That's too bad. Ours would only be mediocre if you were at a big restaurant. But here in the house, to be able to just get it and have it like anytime, so happy that we figured that out. That is going to make all the difference. We talked about this. I talked about this on the show, but one of the reasons that we maintain or have in the past, because we closed one of them already, maintained restaurants here was because it provides us with food that we want. And there are times we just want to go out and get a great fried shrimp dinner, and we want really good French fries, and we want salmon burgers. That's what I'm going to do tomorrow. Out at Desperados, right? Like there's times that I just want to go out and have like amazing sauces and amazing whatevers, and we do the best salmon. I mean, we have the best salmon sandwich in Western Nicaragua for sure, like no question at Desperados. So, like that I can go out and just get that. That's amazing having my own restaurant. However, it actually turns out we figured out that having your own restaurant, because they lose so much money, it's so hard to maintain a restaurant that we want the food from. Here, it would be way cheaper to take the chef from that restaurant and make them our own full-time cook. and then they make whatever you want, whenever you want, and do the shopping. Like, it's way cheaper. Larry says, your man... Oh, yes, I know, Larry. We almost got them last night. Been waiting 3 months for you to deliver order falafel. He's opening a big shawarma restaurant in Chinandega, which I definitely want to check out. Larry, resend me the contact information for him, and can I WhatsApp? Can I just text them on WhatsApp to do a delivery? I will do that much easier. Like, I do not call restaurants. It's always like, oh, I got to call, and then it's going to be... But if I can text them and they'll deliver, then I'll be all over it. How much does a cook cost? Because and trust me, Larry, there's a number of times that I'm like, oh, you know what I want? And it's always they just closed, or I can't find their contact information fast enough, or we didn't think of it at the right, but I really want that. Every time I walk by, I'm like, oh, I need to order that. And some, like yesterday, my office wanted to get food from him, and they were on Pedidos Ya. They're like, we're going to order. I'm like, my food's not on there. And they're like, oh, so he lost that whole thing because he wasn't on. All he's got to do is add it to Pedidos Ya. I will order it constantly because it's so easy. Oh, Luke says the screen froze. It's doing okay here at the moment. Yeah. Gypsy says, how much does a cook cost? So they'll vary a bit, depends on how you're going to treat them and what you're going to have them do, obviously. And I don't mean like you're going to abuse them. I just mean like, are they live in? Are they full time? Are they daytime? Are they nighttime? Like all those things matter. Right now, we always maintain a cook that starts at a little bit of flexibility, right? But say 8 o'clock and goes like 8 to 5, and they get plenty of flexibility during the day. Not only do they get, like, they have private space in the house, they have a TV, they have internet, they'll take an hour lunch. They'll also take time throughout the day, like nothing's going on. But we do send them out to do the shopping, and they don't just cook because there's only just a couple of us. They would have nothing to do, and as it is, all day long, she's like, can I make you food? So I have her make me coffee and all that stuff, and people see her come into the office. That's around about, here in Leon, about $300 a month. Could you get someone cheaper? Absolutely. Are they going to know how to cook and do stuff? No, not very likely. So you'll be struggling much below that for good cook. If you just need someone who's going to heat up your food and do basic things, you could probably get away a little bit below that. But by the time you've paid their bill, and the other thing, Larry, is because I never have cash ever. And so because I can't do credit card that way, it makes it really hard. There's so many times that I don't do it because all I have is a credit card. And sometimes I have to do it remotely for people. So if they would deliver that, if they could take credit cards through Petitos Jaw, I know it costs extra, so I get it, but that would be awesome. But he's on Petitos Jaw. All he has to do is add his falafel to Petitos Jaw. That would solve it. But I know I need to call him for sure. By the time you pay for their monthly salary, you pay for the 13th month, you pay for their liquidation, all those things, you basically have to be at $300 a month to get anyone above absolute minimum wage. So that's a pretty good number. You could pay a little bit more than that for sure. And in some markets like San Juan del Sur, you'll definitely have to pay at least like $350. Managua, you're probably going to have to pay $350 to get someone good. But in that range, our cook came to us and was like, she was running restaurants, right? Very experienced. We had worked in our restaurants, worked in lots of other restaurants, knew how to cook, knew how to manage the restaurant, all that stuff. So we knew she could make a lot of different things of food. She had experience doing it. She had to do it under pressure with orders, which we're not, right? We're not pressure at all. She came to us and was like, I really want to work in your house because even though she makes a little bit more working at like a restaurant, she's like, I don't make enough more to make the stress worth it. Like, this is great. She has a little bit of flexibility. I got to leave early today. My kid's sick. Whatever, just go. Right? I'm going to come in late. I missed the bus. Whatever. Right? Just text me. Let me know so I'm not anticipating something. I'll go turn on the coffee or whatever. So we're very flexible, and that makes for a good lifestyle. So you get a little bit cheaper. The more flexibility, and then if you have someone live in, they'll be a little bit cheaper. But having them do the shopping helps pay for things. Keeping you from going out to eat helps pay for things. It's very easy to end up with it not being that expensive overall once they're doing all those things. Luke says, so a good cook providing housing should run about $300. Absolutely. Like anywhere, if you're providing housing and paying $300 a month, or costing you $300 a month, you should be good. Like even in Managua, even some places like Managua and San Juan del Sur, providing housing costs you more. It's more of a value to them. Whereas like if you're out in the country, it's still a value, but you're providing less of a value. Larry says, I sent you the company that will deliver falafel to you. Yeah, I saw it, Larry. Thank you. But I don't understand why he doesn't put his falafel on Petitos Jaw. Every vegetarian in the city would order. There's only that. There's like no vegetarian food in the city. And the vegetarian restaurant doesn't have their vegetarian food on Petitos Jaw. I know there's only a few vegetarians, but people who want falafel, that's their option, right? That's the only thing. Surprised our food hasn't arrived yet. I guess it hasn't been that long. weird. What just happened? Just work stuff. Let's see. Uh-oh. Broke something. Oh, maybe not. Shall see. Oh, I'm feeling a little bit warm. Oh, no. Did break something. But yeah, having a cook here, if you can afford it, and I realize, you know, if you're on a $1,000 a month budget, that is not a thing to spend your money on. But once it's in the range where you're like, where am I going to spend my money in the country? Having a cook or having someone who cooks and cleans, right, so valuable. Once you put all those things together and it's like, oh my gosh, someone just takes care of my house, and having a live-in person who like watches over your house, like, there's a lot of value there. And as vegetarians, that's a really big deal. Now we're pescatarian, right? So like yesterday, because we couldn't order falafel and pita jaw, but my cook, I'm like, hey, let's do, you know, fish tacos. And so one of my employees was here, and they're like, these are amazing, right? Fish tacos with a spicy sauce and a carrot broccoli slaw on it, which you would never guess is like a thing. And he's like, these are good. Right, like really good tacos, and you know, and we did one a couple weeks ago. We did hot Nashville tofu tacos at home. Like we did a bunch of stuff like that, and it was just so good. But my food just arrived. I hear them beeping. I'm going to help them carry in. We've done a number of hours here. We are not bad. We are at solidly over 3 hours. We have a good number of people on, but not a lot. Things are quiet, so we're going to call it a night on a reasonable time, not really early. Gypsy says my internet weather channel says it's about 87 at this moment in Leon. Is that about right? I don't feel it's that warm, but it's 29 right now. That seems about right. So what is that in? Hold on. I don't think that's 87. Maybe I just don't know my temperatures anymore. It's more like 85, which is pretty close. And maybe your weather is just off by an hour or something. But I would say it's pretty comfortable outside. I feel warm in here because I'm drinking coffee and haven't eaten. And I've got the bright lights on me. I do have air conditioning on, but it's really high. Larry says, don't know his reasoning why he doesn't straighten out that part of the delivery. He has a gold mine there. That I do know. Yeah, he's always busy. Eat good food. I like the place. I haven't been there in forever because it's always rough. Tusk is on. Oh, Tusk, we're just about to hop off. Hey, Scott, good to see you. I deleted Instagram a few days ago. It was not bringing joy to my life, but I'm glad to still have you on Nicoloro. Oh, wait. Tusk, do you have me on WhatsApp? Make sure you have me on WhatsApp. I can't believe you deleted Instagram, but that would explain why I've not gotten any messages. Phil says, thank you, Scott. Enjoy the grub. Thank you. Gonna eat pupusas and later something else. I can't remember what else we have. But thanks, everyone, so much for being on. Hopefully I managed to answer everybody's questions. Be sure to get on the show, ask all the things, and watch another episode, blah, blah, blah. Of course, buy me a coffee if you want. I'm killing time until I can find the thing to turn off the show. There it is. Nos vemos. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you so much. Tusk, I miss you too. Get me on WhatsApp. You can text me on there. You can't private message me on Nika Loro. Oh, but you're on Nika Abla, right? I think you can message me on there. Find me somewhere. Or you can track me down pretty easily. All right, everybody.